Good evening. The date is August 4th, and the time is 6:02, and I will call to order the City Council meeting. City Council President Travers is not here tonight, and he's asked me to chair this meeting. The meetings I normally chair are smaller and slightly less involved, so I'll thank in advance my colleagues and others in attendance for bearing with me as I navigate this role tonight. And I'd also like to give a special thanks to Lori and CAO Shad, who's not here yet, but for pitching in on Zoom responsibilities. So with that, the first item on our agenda is a motion on our agenda, and I would welcome a motion on that item. And there's a recommended action on Civic Clerk. Councilor Bergman.
So first, I'll congratulate you ahead of time for this, and we'll support that if there was ever a question about its propriety. But I would move to amend and adopt an amended agenda as follows by removing from the consent agenda item 7.17, which is the fiscal year 25 vehicle purchase recommendation fleet committee, and place it on the deliberative agenda as item 8.5. And that is per me.
Thank you. Is there a second on that motion? Second by Mayor Councilor Broderick. Okay, so we have our agenda, and the first item on our agenda is an executive session.
Vote on the agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed the vote. All those in any discussion on the agenda as proposed and seconded? None? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Now, our first item on our agenda is an executive session that we have planned to discuss a collective bargaining agreement with the Burlington Police Officers Association. Before asking for a motion, I will turn to the administration to see if there's anything that can be shared publicly about this item.
City Attorney Jessica Brown, open meeting law does provide that confidential matters that would, for which premature public knowledge would place the city at a substantial disadvantage, including collective bargaining negotiations, can be discussed in executive session.
Thank you. And with that, I will turn to Councilor McKnight to make the first motion.
Thank you, President Barlow. I move to make a specific finding that premature general public knowledge regarding the proposed terms of a collective bargaining agreement with the Burlington Police Officers Association would clearly place the city at a substantial disadvantage.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Litwin. Is there any discussion? Let's go to a vote on that first motion. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. And now I'll turn to Councilor McKnight for the second motion.
Based on that finding, I move to enter executive session pursuant to 1 VSA 313A1B to discuss a labor relations agreement and to include in such session members of the city's negotiation team from the Department of Finance and Administration, Police Department, and the Mayor and City Attorney's offices.
Is there a second? Seconded by Councilor Bergman. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the second motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. So we are in executive session. We'll be headed downstairs to the Sharon Busher conference room. Public forum is warned for a time certain of 6:45, so we will be back up here right around then. So thank you. Stay tuned. Okay, we're going to get going again. Okay. We warned public forum for a time certain of 6:45, and it's 6:49, so we're going to do public forum now. Under our rules, we'll hear first from Burlington residents here in City Hall. We'll then hear from Burlington residents online, followed by non-Burlington residents here in City Hall, and lastly, non-Burlington residents online. As a reminder, online participants in public forum must sign up at least an hour in advance of the meeting. Whether in person or online, each speaker will be allowed 2 minutes. When I call your name, if you're here in City Hall, please come to the table, make sure the microphone is on, and there should be a green light illuminated on the microphone itself. And make sure you speak closely into the mic. For those online, I will let you know when you've been unmuted and we'll share a timer on the screen. When providing comments, please direct them to me as the chair and not to any other individual. It's important that City Hall remain a safe place for those in attendance and for those watching our meetings. The council certainly respects and values diversity of opinions on public issues. We ask, however, that all comments be free from individualized attacks, hate, harassment, obscenities, or other derogatory language about individuals, particularly any individual's protected characteristics. We also ask that public comments avoid conduct that is unreasonably loud, disruptive, or discourteous. If I interrupt any speaker at any point in time, it will be to give them an opportunity to act in accordance with these rules. If someone continues to violate these rules, I reserve the right to end public comment at that point in time. And with that said, we will begin with Burlington residents in person. And our first speaker is Laura Lucchini. Yeah, is the microphone on?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have some ideas. I don't know all that you've looked into for the people who are homeless, but I wanted to tell you some of my ideas. I was thinking about putting people on the borders around Vermont and stopping drugs from coming in and out of Vermont, and that would help with some of the drug problems. I was thinking at the airports and the trains, and if organizations like hardware stores and places like that could donate wood and things to build more of these small houses and get some of the homeless people involved, because I think some of them are probably carpenters, and talk to them and see if some of them are interested in getting off from drugs and alcohol and helping them do that. I was thinking about a medical clinic and where doctors could volunteer different kinds of medicine, like alternative medicine and MA doctors, and that they could help diagnose these people and help them with their mental health, and then they could be diagnosed nutritionally and as far as what their mental health issues are, and to get to know them and to see what they want to do with their life. I was thinking that it would be good to talk to some of the places, like meditation places, like the Shambhala Center and other spiritual people who have really good presence and they're very patient, and see if they have some ideas too, and to see if they would be willing to be volunteers to help with the homelessness problem in this town. And I was thinking of opening another mental health organization to compete with Howard Community Services, because I think if we opened up a mental health organization, I don't think drugs are always the answer to healing nutritional problems.
Thank you, Laura.
Okay.
Next, we have Andrea Vietz.
Good evening. I did not prepare my careful written statement, nor did I time my words. I told you I'd come back to report on the status of planning for transitioning folks who are currently participating at Core Senior Center to the Heineberg Senior Center. And I'm here to say that we've made no progress on that plan, despite numerous meetings with city councilors, the mayor's office, Parks and Rec. And that's really disheartening to me. I've visited CORE a number of times, And I would say that the participants there feel unseen, they feel disrespected, they feel worried that they're not going to be able to get to the Heineberg because they can't afford the $8 round trip that SSTA would cost, and they're unable to walk to a bus stop to take the city bus from, example, the Old North End downtown to Cherry Street, and then all the way back up North Avenue to the Heineberg. It could take upwards of an hour and a half to 2 hours each way for those folks. I'm continuing to work with all of the people I named previously, and we are continuing to try to seek resolutions that will benefit these folks as well as other older adults in the city. I also feel strongly that we need to look down the road at a downtown senior center. There are hundreds of older adults in the city core and in the Old North End who need services and who need to be able to have a sense of community. And I think that's what we need down the road. So I invite you to join me on that effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Next, we have Robin Lloyd.
Okay, yes, hello. My name's Robin Lloyd. I'm president of the Vermont chapter of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, and we're delighted that Mayor Emma suggested in a meeting we had a couple of weeks ago that we ask the City Council to affirm your interest and support of Mayors for Peace. So Mayors for Peace is an international organization formed in 1982 at the United Nations by a call from the mayor of Hiroshima, who was one of the cities, as you know, destroyed by a U.S. nuclear weapon in 1945. And he invited cities throughout the world to work together for nuclear abolition. Presently, there are over 8,000 member cities of Mayors for Peace in 166 countries. So you may know that Bernie Sanders joined Mayors for Peace back in the day in the 80s when he was mayor, but it seems the community has not followed up on that and I believe, has not been paying the $14 annual fee to become a member of Mayors for Peace. So now is the time to rejoin. If you follow the news, you know that the U.S. government is planning for war. They are modernizing their Army, Navy, and Air Force, and they are storing these weapons, it's called forward storing, to use them when the time comes, and that time is war with China in 2027, what many pundits say. So what I want to say is the values of peace, diplomacy, friendship, nonviolence, sister cities, these are what we hope will be emphasized through our commitment to Mayors for Peace.
Thank you.
And I urge you all to vote yes to this resolution. Thank you.
Next, we have Gene Hopkins.
Hi, I'm Jean Hopkins. I live up on East Ave, and I am also a member of WILPF, Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, and I believe we need to build homes, not weapons. There are still and probably will be communities in Vermont and around the country devastated by floods. This requires a greater need for more homes and infrastructure, such as roads and better public transportation systems instead of more weapons. I fortunately own an apartment in a condo association, but do not own a car. Therefore, I use Green Mountain Transit bus service about 3 times a week. Since I live near the hospital, I was disappointed to learn the College Street free shuttle might be eliminated. Is this partially due to our tax dollars going to the military-industrial complex instead of housing and infrastructure? Our mayors need a stronger voice to speak up together to provide the people of our country with basic human needs. That's why I'm encouraging our mayor to join Mayors for Peace.
Thank you. Next, we have, I believe it's Trevor Smolin, and correct me, please, if I mispronounced your last name.
Hi, my name's Trevor Smolin, and first thing people need to start doing is individualizing the homeless. Every single person out there has become homeless, totally different stories. At this point, every day I'm meeting more elders, some people with paralyzed limbs who are fresh homeless. The hospital is not a hotel. But the hotel program, even Phil Scott's letters state it has failed systemically. The people who it is designed to help, it is nothing more than a long-term loan under duress. We're a melting pot of misery where individuals are placed, pedophiles, women, children, sex offenders, everything in a hotel that potentially has swimming pools with no state oversight, even to the point where the state makes it so the hotel employees have no recourse if anyone gets harmed, potentially. It's a big blanket of unaccountability. To me, this is basically a glorified poor farm situation, which was made illegal in 1797. And up until 1968, the state was basically running poor farms, which is why you'll have state farms, poor farm roads, such like that. Essentially, I see a huge puddle of waste, fraud, and abuse where systemically people are just being, through revolving doors, people are being hundreds, potentially thousands of people are being paid to manage resources that do not exist. So what are we, nothing more than cattle? And cattle need health care. Any farmer needs, make sure your cows are healthy. And unfortunately, City Hall Park has become nothing more than a glorified grotto for troubled people. And it's destroyed Burlington. It's created a situation where the locals do not want to come downtown. It's full of yuppies shopping who treat the homeless like POS, and essentially we are angry, and we don't want to wait for a white swan event, like something catastrophic to happen, people to start dying. We need to look at legislation, make landlords safe. No one wants to rent in Vermont when someone can pirate your house and essentially not pay rent, and the system's so clogged it takes 5 years to get them out. Legislation's the main issue.
Thank you, Trevor. Thank you. Next, we have Bruce Wilson.
Hello, city councilors. Nice to see you again. And Honorable Mayor, it's nice to always see you. Thank you for doing the good work you do. And so I'm Bruce Wilson, and I'm in charge of Arts So Wonderful, and thank you all for supporting our program through the years. I really appreciate that. And what I'm here for today is to talk about Arts So Wonderful. That's artssowonderful.org, .com. And so I would like for you to look at that website, and you'll see a lot of incredible things that we've been doing since 2003. So what we're trying to do is continue to have a graffiti abatement program for Burlington to operate successfully like it's been since 2003, when I created in 2001 a community justice, which I'm a founding member of. And so we're still doing the work. And if you look around Burlington, look how beautiful it is today. Arts So Wonderful volunteers from St. Michael's and Champlain College MOVE program and UVM programs have helped us remove graffiti in Burlington, not just recently, for many, many years. And look around Burlington, you see how beautiful it is. A lot of other organizations and people who have came out and did the same thing, but we've been doing this for a long time. But what I'm trying to say is now, so now, Thorson Way, bam, it's, you know, it used to be like, who want to walk down that damn alley? all that graffiti on the wall. It looks so pitiful. Is it safe? I might get robbed. I might get killed. Or some other unfortunate thing could happen to you. So now if you walk down that alley, all these incredible murals are down there. You guys are sponsored 2 Juneteenth awards for down there, murals, and it's beautiful. So we want to do murals all the way out to College Street. Our sponsor, we got the whole thing. It just throws away, but it's so wonderful. So I need your support. So somehow I want to talk with you about how can you help us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bruce.
All right, and then these are towels. Yeah.
Next, we have Andre Clark.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate it. I can do the rest of the work. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Andre Clark, Ward 2. I'm the founder of Street Cats Burlington, a local mutual aid organization serving our unhoused friends and neighbors. I experience homelessness and housing insecurity in Chittenden and Addison counties where I've lived most of my life. I have a master's in public health from UVM where I learned to analyze data and assess the quality of research studies. I'm here to express my dismay with a statement that was made at a previous city council meeting and presented as data-driven evidence. The statement said that food not cops leaving the parking garage caused an immediate 50% decrease in heroin use, crack usage, public urination and defecation, as well as sexual solicitation. There is no actual numerical data to back this statement, and the source of the so-called data was the sheriff who the city pays to monitor the garage. We cannot consider anecdotal evidence from one potentially biased individual as fact, regardless of how trustworthy we view that source. Whether it was the intention or not, that statement demonizes Food Not Cops and the work of their many volunteers. It also demonizes, by association, Street Cats, People's Kitchen, and any organization serving our unhoused friends and neighbors. Choosing to accept this statement as evidence implies that people accessing Food Not Cops as a resources are bad people who all commit crimes, use drugs, and display antisocial behavior. This furthers the dehumanization people already face for having nowhere to live. I remember vividly the fear I had that people would know I was homeless and the judgment they would have about me because of that. The language used by this council and many members of our community lets me know those fears were founded. We need to push back against this stigma and hold each other accountable for language that further dehumanizes our unhoused friends and neighbors. Nobody should be judged for not having a place to sleep at night. It is not a moral failing. It is not a crime. It is a systemic failure. I believe the city council and mutual aid organizations like Street Cats, Food Not Cops, and People's Kitchen all have the same end goal. Mutual aid is not the enemy. We are one part of the solution and the city council is another. We all want the best way for Burlington, and the best way forward is
Please
together.
wrap up. Thank you. Thank you, Andre. Next, we have Lee Morgan.
Hello, my name is Lee Morgan. I live in Ward 3. I am here to request that a counselor issue a retraction about false crime data attributed to Food Not Cops that this counselor claimed to have received from the Chittenden County Sheriff's Department. This data sounded dubious to me, so I filed public records requests to verify this claim. The Sheriff's Department confirmed through a records request that they do not track this data, and also confirmed that they provided zero written or recorded information to this counselor. In a separate records request, a member of the mayor's staff wrote that the sheriff told them he only discussed with the counselor during a phone call a reduction in the number of unhoused people in the garage between 11:30 and 3:30. Again, a reduction in the number of unhoused people in the garage between 11:30 and 3:30, a pattern he acknowledges is consistent with warmer months. This false claim was reported in media outlets and by members of the public online. So to reiterate, a counselor said that data from the Sheriff's Department reported a 50 to 75% decrease in crime the day Food Not cops left the parking garage. The Sheriff's Department confirmed they do not track this data. They do not track this data. The Sheriff's Department confirmed they do not track this data. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Our last Burlington resident here in Contois is Charlotte Dennett.
Hello, I'm a resident of Ward 7. I'm an author, a lawyer, and an investigative journalist. My most recent book is about the role of big oil in causing all the endless wars in the Middle East. I want to speak about the recent bombing of Iran, and I also want to speak in favor of the resolution Mayors for Peace. I think you would connect with me that we have watched helplessly genocide on TV. Genocide by bombs, genocide by starvation, and we're expected to applaud the US bombing of Iran nuclear facilities with 3,000-pound bunker busters. Wonder what the I can't come up with the word. Decontamination. Decontamination. I wonder about that. I've learned that it's often not revealed and classified. At any rate, the idea was it would weaken Iran and Iran's support for Hamas, but that has backfired, as Jerusalem Post reported. Well, what's coming next? Armageddon in the Middle East? Our own annihilation by two megalomaniacs trying to stay in power and avoid a jail sentence? This is insanity. So I really do urge you to vote in favor. It's at least one thing that we can do to show where we, the people, stand on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. And now I'll turn to Burlington residents online. And we have one, and that's Pike Porter. So if you could enable Pike. Go ahead, Pike.
How are you?
Very good, thanks. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to talk about the city fleet recommendations. And I'd like to have you think about the request as an acknowledgement that the 2019 climate resolution that the city council passed it's an acknowledgement that you're not going to meet those goals. The city should be leading by example. Whatever plans the city has to meet the 2030 net zero goals are not working. So I'd ask you, as you consider the fleet recommendations, you also consider what adopting or planning to adopt other plans so that we can meet those goals. Lawn care, lawn equipment should be low-hanging targets. They don't have catalytic converters, so the smog, the ground level ozone, the nitrous oxides, the particulate matter are magnitudes greater than that from passenger vehicles and other cars. So there should be a plan in place to say, reduce or eliminate all two-stroke engines for lawn equipment by 2027. We need to take small steps like that. We could, for example, consider and adopt a highway program for parks. We could decide to mow half as much. We could contract the work out to EV-only lawn care companies. We could work with the American Green Zone Alliance, et cetera, et cetera. But whatever we decide, please consider adopting or asking all city departments, I'm not just focused on Department of Public Works here, this is just an
Thank you,
example,
Pike.
to adopt small steps to reach our net zero goals. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Pike. And now I'll turn back to non-Burlington residents here at Contois, and our first non-Burlington resident here is Christopher Rice.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Chris Rice. I'm a lawyer from Montpelier, here tonight on behalf of Uber. My policy partner, Katie Franger from Uber, wasn't available to be here tonight, so she asked me to come and deliver some comments for you. First, I want to thank the city for acknowledging the change that occurred on July 1st, specifically 23 VSA Section 754B, which previously granted the city of Burlington certain authority was repealed. With that repeal, all provisions of the city's vehicle for hire ordinance that are inconsistent with state law are preempted. Uber looks forward to working together with city officials to ensure local operations align with the state mandated framework. In the last month, Katie has spoken with numerous city officials to understand the city's views on how the repeal of Section 754B affects the regulation of ride-sharing in Burlington. We understand that the city believes it maintains the authority to continue to charge a per-trip fee, an increase to which is being considered by the council here tonight. We're still seeking the city's views on the remainder of the sunset ordinance, including the city's permitting process, driver background checks, vehicle requirements, and oversight of company records. Second, we're also concerned that the proposed increase in the per-trip fee is not for the express purpose of administering the vehicle for hire ordinance. That proposed increase shifts the nature of the charge from supporting vehicle for hire system to what is effectively a general revenue tax. Finally, we want to thank the Airport Authority for agreeing to work together to update our existing operating agreement to make sure it appropriately reflects the changes to services and offerings for travelers. Appreciate the opportunity to comment tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Next, we have Nancy Rice.
Hello. Thank you for considering this resolution. I think that if the City Council okayed Burlington being a member of Mayors for Peace, not only would it help people understand that we need to settle conflicts with dialogue rather than war. And I also, this is such a concerning topic, and it affects all of us in the world. And it's very concerning, to say the least, when you hear leaders of countries talking about using nuclear weapons as if that was something thinkable. I think if you okayed this proposal, it would help with a culture of peace, keeping that uppermost. And Native Americans used to say, if you're making a decision, think of the next seven generations. We should be at least thinking of the next one generation. And I think if Burlington took this resolution on, it would show young people that they could have hope, that the grown-ups are trying to do something. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, finally, we'll turn to two more speakers, non-Burlington residents online. And the first is Karen Sita. Will you enable Karen, please?
I am not finding Karen online.
Karen, if you are online, can you use your raised hand function so that we can promote you? No? Okay. So then we'll move on to Robert Perry online. Go ahead, Robert.
Good evening. My name is Robert Perry. My partner and I own a property on Clark Street across from the Howard Center Needle Distribution Program. We provided public comment before and we returned today because the situation has not changed. This weekend, we are at our building and witnessed a drug deal occur directly in front of the Howard Center building. There were people waiting and sitting there, and a car pulled up and they went right out and did a drug deal right in the middle of the day, right on Clark Street. This is a common occurrence. The program on Clark Street run by the Howard Center is a magnet for drug abuse and is run irresponsibly. We've been in constant contact with the Howard Center for over 2 years and have asked them repeatedly to move the program to a new location. They've either ignored us or when we engage indicate they have no plan to find a new location that returns safety and livability to Clark Street. Clearly, the Howard Center cares more for the drug abusers and drug dealers than the taxpaying residents of Burlington. Instead of moving, they've spent money, something they seem to no longer have, on fencing, security guards, and landscaping, yet nothing changes. The fundamental problem is that the drug abusers know the Howard Center is a safe place to use drugs and congregate with fellow abusers. They come to the facility, receive an unlimited supply of syringes, step outside, buy drugs from waiting dealers, and then shoot up either on the Howard Center property or the neighbor's property. When security actually does something, all they do is move the problem to the neighboring properties. The city must hold social programs accountable for their impact on the city. Our tenants do not feel safe on the street. Old North End residents avoid Clark Street. We hear so much about the rights of the marginalized, while the majority of civil citizens have rights to a peaceful, safe existence, and they do not have it. Overdoses and first responder visits are a regular occurrence, not to mention the highly visible needle litter problem, which is a direct result of the Howard Center's uncontrolled distribution of thousands of syringes each month. The city must rein in the activities of social service programs and organizations that operate with little to no oversight and care nothing for their impact on the community at large. A full review of a location, activity, and impact is a necessity, as well as a reconsideration of zoning to prohibit programs from operating in residential areas. Burlington must make the downtown streets safe again, and controlling drug abuse and the social service programs that support it is essential. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that's our last speaker in public forum, so I'm going to go ahead and close public forum. And we do have a local control commission meeting planned for 7:30. And I'm thinking that between now and then, we could probably slot in item number 4, the mayor's general city affairs update. So with that, I'll turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you, Acting President Barrow. You didn't say that I had a timer because I wasn't here last time, but I will try to go efficiently through my updates for the city and the council. So first of all, I want to update folks on some staffing changes and also where we are with a few critical department head hiring efforts in the last few weeks. So first of all, Sinead Murray, who was our executive assistant in our office, has decided to move on to a new professional opportunity, which we're very sad but also very excited for this new opportunity. So she has transitioned out of our office. This is the person who answers the phone, who answers a lot of the emails for constituents, and did such a stellar job representing my office and handling every call, every visit, every email with quite a lot of care. And that's also just to remind folks, when you contact the mayor's office, there's a human on the other side of that phone line. There's a human on the other side of those emails. And she did a great job representing and getting people the information and the answers that they needed. We have a temporary Burlingtonian, a college student who is helping us through the month of August, Sawyer Totten, who is a BHS graduate at Goucher College right now, political science major. So we have a temporary person right now. Also just want to emphasize and appreciate your patience as we navigate the transition in my office. To our department head hiring process, We have three department head positions that we're hiring right now. One is almost through the first phase of the process. This is the REIB director position. I've appreciated the counselors who have served on the hiring committee, including Counselor Grant, and they'll be making recommendations to me so we can move to the second phase after the end of this week. And I hope to make an offer to a candidate. We have some great applicants, hopefully by early September, if not sooner. Our next department head hiring process sort of starts before we finish REIB, and that's for our Parks Director position. We've closed the application process. We received dozens of qualified applicants. That will be a similar process with a hiring committee, including a member or two from the council. This particular department has a commission, so we'll include the Commission for Community Voice from there as well, and hope to move that interview process in and through September. And then the final one immediately that we're trying to tackle is our longest serving vacancy for a department head, which is our Human Resources Department. And I think my interim is sitting behind me. Lynn Reagan has really held down an interim position much longer. Oh, she's sitting over there. I won't point her out. You'll see her later for another agenda item. But I just really want to take this moment not to only appreciate Lynn and her patience with how long it takes to do a deliberative and professional search process so we can find the best leaders for our departments, but also the other interims who've been serving alongside Lynn within REIB, Christian Berry, within our Parks Department, which is a triad or trident, they call themselves. Three division leaders have been holding that space for the last several weeks. And of course, also our fourth interim Chief Burke, who we appointed to that position slated into that position back in March. Another just update related to department heads. This will be the second year that we will start our annual goal setting process. So I am meeting with every department head to set clear goals, aspirational goals for the department that help advance our three major priorities of community safety, ample affordable housing, and climate work. And so that process is underway, and we'll have sort of a wrap up hopefully by the end of September to share with council. Folks who are new to the council can see documents we shared last September, as well as the public, to get an idea of the scope. It's creating strategy and purpose and direction for all of our departments pushing in the same direction. On to community safety. Last week marked the third week that our new initiative, the Situation Table, met. This is being led by a number of our folks on our community, on our city team, including Ingrid Jonas, the Senior Advisor on Community Safety within my office. And this is, again, the third week. A reminder what this program is. It is basically a referral process to provide a more strategic, organized response to folks who are high risk within our community. And so we did a series of trainings in June. We had 50 plus different partners from around the city and region participate. We are the fourth or fifth Situation Table in the state of Vermont, joining Springfield, Brattleboro, and Bennington, and maybe Rutland might be the fourth one, making us number 5. This allows us to not only get training and share insights from other communities who are ahead of us in using this process, but also figuring out strategies that help bring people's risk level down. And so it's very strategic. You focus on 2 to 3 referrals a week, and you are relentless in engaging and bringing the right partners to the table to support the individual until you can close the case, essentially, where that person's risk level is down to a safer level and we can move on to the next individual. We are tracking the data, and even in last week, they were able to close one of the very small handful so far, because it's been 3 weeks, cases through this approach. So we'll be looking at data, we'll be connecting with the network, not only in Vermont, but across the country and in Canada that have been doing these situation tables for a number of years to continue to learn and adapt and to continue to use this as a new tool as part of our community safety strategy. Next up, you'll be hearing back on the 25th more about City Circle. I appreciate the work the Ordinance Committee has been putting into this. Another new tool that will allow the city, per our rules and regulations, allows us to take charge of some of our own accountability measures for folks who violate our local municipal ordinances in low-level issues. So once we get the rules and configurations figured out through the ordinance process, we hope to launch that early this September or October, and it will allow us to, again, use the restorative approaches as option 1 or the court system as option 2 to make sure we have a more immediate response versus the backlog of our court system. We've also had our first official meeting. There's been a lot of preliminary meetings with IACP, which is the firm we hired to hire our next chief of police. And in this first meeting, we're starting to scope out the candidate profile, as well as the design of how we do community engagement and how do we collect feedback from the community on what we need to see in our next chief of police. Jim Baker is one of the individuals involved through IACP, who is a Vermonter, who has connections not only to other police departments, but has been involved in other search processes for other agencies, police agencies in the state. So I'm glad we're getting started, and you'll hear much more soon on that process. The next community safety press briefing is going to be scheduled a little bit later in August, but I want to flag that we'll be joined by the Burlington School District to speak to an MOU that is finally in place or will be in place by the start of school, which is the end of August, that will reflect the partnership between the school district and the Burlington Police Department on how we will communicate and support their fundamental safety needs. This has been a recommendation from a long-standing set of recommendations from the SRO task force work from years ago, and it has been stalled for years, and we're finally able to finish that work. And I really appreciate Chief Burke and Superintendent Flanagan for bringing that back together and making sure we have clarity and support for our very important partners at the school district. We will also receive another more detailed briefing or work session on the Overdose Prevention Center work next time on August 25th. And just for a quick little cameo moment, the state of Vermont, for which we received authorization to pilot an OPC as well as grant funding to fund such an operation, accepted our certificate of insurance, which is a critical step in the month of July to be able to release the funds and get us on track. This week, an FAQ will be posted through the hard work of Teresa Vizina, who's actually online, but is our specialist on the implementation of an OPC. Thanks to her hard work, that you can find that on the mayor's webpage. We're trying to create the educational tools so folks can really understand what an OPC is and what it is not, as well as where we are in the process. Teresa's role will continue to shift a little bit. We'll have more dialogue on this to be able to manage the complexities of this grant that we are realizing is quite an undertaking for a city. So we'll be engaging Board of Finance to discuss how to support that so she can continue the engagement and education role that we hired her for, but also managing this piece of the grant. Next up, you'll see posted on Civic Clerk under this agenda item, I was able to rescind my first and only executive order as mayor, since I've been mayor, which was related to reviewing in a collaborative fashion the press releases issued by the Burlington Police Department. I'm noting this because I was a part of my executive order that this would be rescinded as soon as the Police Commission were able to review with the chief a media policy that is updated and in line with what the rest of the city is already required to do in terms of standard practice with media relations. So I'm glad and appreciative to the chief and the Police Commission that they were able to take that vote in late July, and on that, the next day, was able to rescind that executive order. And part of the delay was also our police commission's meeting schedule. They meet once a month, and I wish there had been more. We were able to do it sooner, but it is done, and that executive order is no longer in place. A quick note just on data and how we use this when we tackle community safety issues in the city. It will continue to be both a priority and a method that we will use data to inform how we develop answers and solutions and even pilot solutions on how we address complex issues here in the city of Burlington, especially relates to community safety and a lot of the systems that are failing, a lot of folks who are deeply suffering in Burlington. It is this administration's priority that we verify data, that it's accurate, that we reflect that transparently to the community, and that we base our decisions on that. It's a commitment as myself as mayor to make sure that we use that to inform anything we say are trends, including with partners like the Sheriff's Department, as well as making sure that our role of government is one where we are consistent, transparent, and again, making best evidence-based decisions on how we solve really entrenched issues in our city. That's all I'm going to say on that, and that will continue to be what you will hear from anyone in my administration, and certainly from me as mayor of the city of Burlington. Moving on to housing. Housing is the second priority in my administration, to build ample and affordable housing for folks here in Burlington, as well as making housing available, reactivating spaces such as vacant buildings and other things that are highly underutilized or unsafe for that matter. The one and only meeting that I missed so far as mayor was in July, because I was selected as part of 47 mayors from around the world to attend a Harvard Bloomberg acceleration program for initiatives, and I was honored to be picked in the 9th cohort. I'm learning alongside mayors from very large cities. Burlington ties Huntington, West Virginia, is the smallest in this cohort, who interestingly enough is facing a lot of the same entrenched issues of substance use, homelessness, and untreated mental health in their streets. But mayors come from Africa, from South America, Latin America, and then across the U.S. It was a great week to learn alongside them, and this particular initiative on how to accelerate affordable housing and making sure you have ample supply is what I'm focusing on in this year program. I get to send senior staff to the same program, and I am sending my chief of staff and our director of CEDO next week to be part of this same program, and this will unlock a lot of additional resources for Burlington. And also side-by-side learning. There are about 8 to 10 mayors who are also working on housing and homelessness issues in particular. I think this is a real win for Burlington, and I appreciate this opportunity. Thursday, we will bring online and do either ribbon breaking or groundbreaking. They're kind of the same thing, a shovel or scissors. Someone will tell me what to bring, to Cambrian Rise, where Champlain Housing Trust will be breaking ground, or either breaking ground or initiating its opening of new affordable housing at that location. They've been a great partner. It'll be the third affordable housing development in that space in the city, and it just shows that it takes years to sometimes bring these pieces online, but CHT continues to be a critical partner in how we accelerate affordable housing for our residents. Just briefly on to climate, we also had a groundbreaking ceremoniously for our main plant, wastewater treatment plant, in mid-July or so, to start our new upgrades. And I want to thank again the voters of Burlington for the support of the bonds that have enabled us to do this. When we talk about what are we doing with climate, when we get messages around what are you doing, Mayor, on the closed beaches, this is what we're doing. We are investing in critical infrastructure upgrades. We'll take phosphorus out of at least what we're putting into the lake, as well as creating backup systems within our existing plant. So when there is big storm surges that go through our system, that we are able to treat what is ours to treat, and then make sure that we have an infrastructure and a plant that can withstand the changes of our climate around us. I also look forward to shortly climate advisors wrapping up their work and bringing recommendations back to my administration around additional climate policy that we should be taking underway. One last important one, and then speed round, and then I'm wrapping up, is related to our airport. As folks have been probably seeing in the media, it's been concerning and distressing to me, as well as many Burlingtonians and Vermonters, to see ICE detentions and then utilizing our airport as a means for moving people out of Vermont and into deportation or wherever ICE is taking individuals. I will say, as mayor, we are, as a city, continuing to be committed to helping facilitate people find legal representation in all the spaces in the city within our powers. And I also want to make sure that people have, again, accurate information to clarify that what we have authority over as a city and what we do not. Even though this is an airport for which the city has oversight, federal agencies and physical spaces, especially related to operations, are different than what the city actually has legal authority over. It is a tricky and frustrating dynamic, but the FAA, TSA, ICE, Homeland Security have access to both public and secure locations within the airport that we do not have oversight over. So we're trying to adapt and, again, show up in other spaces that we can to make sure we can facilitate folks having access to legal representation and standing in solidarity with folks who are unduly being taken. I want to emphasize no airport employees nor the Burlington Police Department that provides security at the airport have been involved in any of these detentions and moving through people through the airport. I think this is important to make sure people have the facts, even though it can be confusing around who is who at the airport. There are a lot of people who operate there that are not city employees, including airline personnel, TSA, and others. Finally, just quickly, speed round, on August 19th, we'll have a business town hall. I've had several of these over the first 12 to 15 months or so of being mayor. I'll be joined by both chiefs, the chief of police and the chief of our fire department, as well as other staff to talk about the ongoing issues facing our downtown, but hearing, most importantly, from our business community. Big thank you to BCA and the Department of Permanent Inspections for the work on Memorial Auditorium. If you have not seen it, we took down the tags on the building. We wrapped it with artwork by 10 artists, local artists, and it is a step forward of helping to beautify a major gateway to our city. And a huge thank you to the council for the funds from last fiscal year, for which you helped facilitate the ability to provide the supplies for that. At the end of the month, I'll be meeting with other Vermont mayors and Quebec mayors as part of the Vermont League of City and Towns efforts to bring us together to find more ways to build bridges to our Canadian neighbors, including meaningful ways to provide other connection points for bringing people's just bringing them to Burlington, bringing them to other cities and towns in Vermont, to spend money and to encourage that connectivity point, both on economics, but also on community. So you'll hear more from that soon. Another huge thank you to BCA for the Fools Block Party and the 30 or so business communities, including Cafe Hot, for helping us be able to pull off a slightly modified version of the Fools, of what used to be Festival of Fools on a block party. I came down with my family. It was a joyous, and the city was bursting at the seams with lots of funny and wonderful times for families and people of all ages. So thank you again to our sponsors and to BCA. Property taxes bills went out in the middle of July, and I want to appreciate our assessor's office and clerk treasurer's office, and note that on average, most property tax payers would have seen a 2% reduction in a property tax bill. And I'm pointing out that fact out is that we all know that the fiscal year 26 budget was very difficult, but again, when we are committed to making sure Burlington gets on a path of becoming a more affordable city, this is what that looks like. So again, appreciation to the school district as well as council for delivering a very hard but stabilized budget so we can start heading in that direction. And then finally, I thought I'd leave it on this note. Main Street will open on August 15th in nights and weekends, and that is weather dependent, but I double checked with Chapin Spencer, our DPW director. It is something we've been working very hard to reopen those travel lanes. It's an important part for our businesses in our downtown, but you will be able to travel back and forth, east and west, on August 15th in the evenings and on the weekends after that point. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor, for that update. As I mentioned earlier, we have a Local Control Commission meeting warned for 7:30. So I will recess our City Council meeting at 7:42 and call to order the Local Control Commission. The first item on the agenda is the agenda, and may I have a motion on that item?
I would move to adopt the agenda as posted on Civic Clerk.
Motion made by Commissioner Broderick. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Commissioner Schachter. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Next, the only item on this agenda is a consent agenda, and I'll turn back to Commissioner Broderick for a motion on that item.
I move to adopt the consent agenda and take the actions indicated.
You have a second?
Second.
By Commissioner Singh. Any discussion on that item? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. And with no further business and absent objection, I'll adjourn the Local Control Commission at 7:43 and call back to order the City Council meeting. Next, I think we'll do number 3, our work session, 3.1, homelessness update from the mayor's team.
Thank you very much, Acting President Barlow. I'm going to be joined by Sarah Russell, who is part of our CEDO and Mayor's Office team, here tonight to help give an update on our homelessness crisis that we continue to manage and navigate as best we can. What we're going to present tonight is both data where we have been, what we've been experiencing as a city, but also as a state in terms of homelessness trends and numbers and who are behind those particular numbers and trends, as well as how we've been navigating a very problematic executive order from the White House that came out about 10 days or so ago. We'll explain what was included in that executive order, as well as the city's response to that executive order. And then wrap up a little bit on what has been our strategy and what will continue to be our strategy going forward as a city, as we continue to do our part, and most importantly, emphasize the need for stronger partnership by the state of Vermont, because this is a crisis that is outside the control of the city of Burlington to manage on our own, not only with resources, but with expertise. And we really you'll hear this throughout this presentation. We really need the state to come to the table differently, and to find real solutions that are sustainable and actually begin to solve this chronic issue that the state's been struggling under for years now. Is that enough filibustering intro, Sarah Russell?
Perfect.
All right, so she's going to take it away.
Thanks, Mayor. We have a few slides to share tonight. I'm going to start, and the mayor's going to finish off, and then we'll certainly have time for questions from everyone. So this first slide, we're going to start with some data. This slide shows a 12-month look back from our coordinated entry system. You'll see some other data points around the point in time count that were released last week. Important to remember that coordinated entry measures folks on a household basis, and the point in time count measures individual people. We find that for planning purposes, it is easier to measure folks based on household, because it gives us an idea of how many units of housing we need, that kind of thing. So this is an easier way for us to look at that. This is our unsheltered data. We gather this data from the Champlain Valley Office of Economic Opportunity, the Community Resource Center, which is one of the largest providers serving folks who are unsheltered. Some of these folks, many of them are not, but some of these folks are captured within the coordinated entry data on the previous slide. Traditionally, it's harder to connect with folks who are unsheltered, so they're not always represented in our coordinated entry data. As you'll see on this slide, again, a 12-month look back, you'll see some spikes here in September. This is when we saw some mass exits from the General Assistance Emergency Housing Program, or the motel program. Then again, we saw a spike just recently in July when we had more exits. I want to just note that in April, the Community Resource Center temporarily relocated from North Winooski Avenue to the corner of Pearl Street, and saw a dip in their utilization because of that transition. They've seen gradual uptick and are expected to relocate back to their permanent spot on October 1st. This is an updated shelter capacity report. This is our anticipated shelter capacity for the 2025-2026 season. I know a couple of you always ask, so I'll point out that there are a couple locations here that are not within Burlington. That would be the Williston Family Shelter that's located at the old Vermont State Police Barracks, and the STEPS Safe House program is in Colchester. The Harbor Place Med Respite beds that are listed here are in Shelburne. Overall, we have seen a decrease over last year in our shelter capacity, which is certainly concerning. The Champlain Inn last year, I believe, had 30 beds of seasonal shelter. That has dropped down to 20 beds. While we anticipate that the way station will relocate from Church Street to their new location on Pearl Street, they will increase the bed count by 20 year-round beds. However, the 30 low-barrier seasonal beds they operated last year are going offline. Another thing I wanted to know about this is what's missing from last year also are 6 beds with the Howard Center Safe Haven program. That is a shelter program for folks who have some pretty significant mental health issues. Howard Center announced that they would be closing those beds, in addition to some other supportive housing units in Essex due to reduced funding. So overall, we see a total capacity decrease of 66 shelter beds in Chittenden County over last year, which is concerning as you're, see the trends over the winter months continue to increase. I will note that there's the potential that we have also lost some motel capacity. Right now, one of the motels in Colchester is not accepting referrals. However, it's a bit of a moot point because at this point there are over 500 empty motel rooms across the state because people have met their 80-day max and can't access them. So the program is operating at least 50%, if not more, like 60% under capacity. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about our encampment response. So we, as I've shared a couple of times before in the past, meet weekly. This is a cross-departmental team that comes together and, kind of debriefs sort of what's going on. We use a little bit of a standard format for those meetings where we are identifying the location, the issues at that location, and if there's action required. The city attorney is also part of that meeting, so there's a bit of consultation around ensuring that we are, following our sheltering on public lands policy. As you can see, our efforts are demonstrated here around trying to focus on removing camps from city-owned parks. You'll see that this is a 60-day period of time. There were 37 camps that were noticed for removal in city parks. And just to keep in mind so you know how hard these staff are working, the 60 days, I was told, ended up equating to about 43 work days. So staff are, absolutely out there every single day assessing camps and making sure that we are enforcing our ordinance where we need to. Wanted to give a little update on the extreme cold weather shelter. As you all know, last season the city led operations of the extreme cold weather shelter at the Miller Center in partnership with CVOEO. We were open for a total of 9 nights. That was 5 blocks of activation over the winter. Served a lot of people, around 214 people, and the average nightly census at that location was 75 folks. In addition, we collected some data on people who accessed the extreme cold weather shelter and are using that to anticipate what the need might be like. For this type of shelter opportunity next season. For next season, CVOEO will take lead for Chittenden County in the operation of an extreme cold weather shelter, and Vermont Interfaith Action and Green Mountain Justice have been awarded a grant by the Agency of Human Services to work on sort of standardizing the funding awards, policies, procedures of these shelters across the state, utilizing the activation or utilizing the -10 threshold that the city actually led with last winter. So that was reassuring to us. This group, VIA and Great Mountain Justice, actually wanted to activate a threshold of 0 degrees, but that would mean we're running a seasonal shelter at that point and not, an extreme cold weather shelter. I think that we all recognize the level of vulnerability that folks have who are outside right now, the number of people who are outside, that the -20 is just absolutely inhumane, as is -10, honestly, but it's closer. We have actually been working in consultation with both of these groups. They're utilizing the city's policy as a template for other activation across the state, and they will be collecting feedback from local shelter providers and service providers at our upcoming Chittenden County Homeless Alliance meeting this week. We're also going to work on putting together a working group that will identify additional options for extreme cold weather shelter operation, recognizing that there were so many people at the Miller Center in one location that there is a need to work on sort of spreading that to different areas, and not having quite such a concentration becomes more challenging to manage, obviously, and we need to, think about safe staffing ratios in one place. One of the ideas that's been proposed is that different service providers would agree to pick up a different, certain number of beds at different, overflow beds at different locations. There is funding available for that through the state, and so that is a planning point that we're trying to focus on ahead of, minus 10 degrees on December 1st. Also wanted to talk a little bit about the point in time count. The report came out last month. This is our statewide data. I did a comparison here of some of the subpopulations for you and then noted the trend on the side there. I want to just highlight from this slide here, and I'll talk a little bit more about this in the next slide, but on the night of the point in time count, which as many of you know is a count that is conducted in every community across the country on one night, the extreme cold weather shelter happened to be operating because we had temps that met that threshold. And on that night, we served 82 people who were counted in the point in time count as being sheltered when they were actually only sheltered for that night. So that still, even with those 82 people counted as sheltered, statewide we saw an increase of 62% of our unsheltered population, which is astounding to me. I do want to note, statewide saw a decrease of about 14% in children or family homelessness. We equate that directly to the opening of new two-bedroom affordable units and some specific rental assistance that was geared toward families exiting homelessness. So this, indicates that when we place our efforts, on solutions related to housing production and affordability, we see a change in the trend year over year. This next slide is the Chittenden County data. As I actually changed the number in here to reflect that 82, so that 82 is reflected in here. In Chittenden County, we actually, while the rest of the state saw a little bit of a 2% decrease, Chittenden County saw a little bit of a 2% increase. We saw a 22% increase in Chittenden County of our unsheltered folks. And relatively stable around mental health issues. Again, you're seeing the decrease in children being homeless because we're able to house them. I think one of the trends I really want to focus on this slide is that we're seeing obviously significant increase in folks who identify as having a substance use challenge, and also our elderly or older Vermont population. The executive order. I'm going to go through this a little bit and then pass over to the mayor for finish up this slide and then the last one as well. As I think many of you know, I linked in the memo. The president signed an executive order ending crime and disorder in America's streets. Largely, this is also detailed in the memo. This isn't new information, so I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but I think from our perspective, it really makes the values of the federal administration really clear. And it's concerning that evidence-based best practice that we have been utilizing has been proven to be effective, such as harm reduction and housing first models, are are under fire by this administration, and that there seems to be a focus on involuntary institutionalization, which, goes against everything that, we have worked to maintain choice in receiving services within the community. So it is highly concerning, and I'm going to turn it over to the mayor to talk about how we are responding as a city.
Thank you, Sarah. So I just want to emphasize what I mentioned in the introduction here. This is there's been many deeply concerning executive orders out of this current president, but this one in particular cuts deep for a lot of the work that we've been trying to do as a state of Vermont, and including the city of Burlington, especially with solutions, as I mentioned earlier, that are evidence-based. This is all based on rhetoric and a approach to policymaking that is not based on what actually works. It is also not based on a value system for which the city of Burlington clearly holds, where we see the humanity in people, we look for solutions that actually look at the root causes of why people struggle to maintain stable housing, or not able to access health care that stabilizes their mental health or their substance use disorder. This is not that, and so this is deeply concerning. And I want to make sure people know that this executive order, as of today, does not. We will not have any immediate impacts on our approach for a few different reasons to our approach to the homelessness response, as well as trying to support mental health and substance use disorder crises in our state. And that's largely because this does not currently defund any of our current programs. In Board of Finance, we just talked about a couple of grants related to work. Often federal money comes almost a year late to local municipalities, so that money has already been appropriated by a prior Congress. This does not necessarily guarantee, obviously, anything going forward with what Congress does or does not do with appropriations for federal fiscal year 25 or in the future. But currently, there's no defunding of current programs. This is also not banning harm reduction programs. This is an executive order, as we've seen a lot in this pattern by the current president. He asserts things, sometimes things get rolled back, there's limited powers, things will be hopefully played out in our court system for clarification that he can't unilaterally take action on many things. And also want to emphasize, we have really, especially since ARPA money has shifted and dried and sunset, our current programming and response in Burlington is largely funded with state and local dollars. This applies not only to our homelessness response, but our overdose prevention center work, our partnership with the Howard Center, and our budget. We increased our local funding source to support that critical outreach work to folks suffering from mental health issues. That's very important to the city of Burlington, and we have control over our local dollars, and we will maintain and enforce that as long as we can, because that is how we are making our decisions to support community and inform, again, what policy actually works that brings people's risk levels down and ultimately, hopefully, helps people heal and get on a path of either treatment and then recovery or support for stabilized housing. I want to really emphasize that, again, we will always lead with compassion here in Burlington, at least while I'm mayor, and I hope in partnership with this council. We will use evidence-based methods, and we will always look at the data to inform how we respond. We'll just wrap up on this slide by saying back what I said earlier in mayor comments. I'm meeting a lot of great mayors around the country, and the mayor of Alexandria, Virginia right now is also a fairly new mayor. And she was recently on NPR speaking as someone who used to work in homelessness as a professional and now as the mayor of the city that's across the river, literally, from President Trump. And she spoke specifically to this, that in her community, they are also committed to using, again, compassion, evidence-based solutions and data. And they've been actually seeing a decrease in their homelessness numbers because they've been doing housing first and harm reduction models, et cetera. So we are not alone. I use that story just to emphasize many mayors are standing up against these incredibly inhumane executive orders, and we will continue to do so here in Burlington. Don't we have two more? There we do. Okay, we have two more slides about what we're doing next because we anticipated that would be a question.
Very good.
Thank you. Oh, I'm doing this. And who's doing that one? Sarah? Me. Okay. So just briefly, I just want to share, again, high level in terms of strategies we're taking to move forward. Many of this is continuing to do what we've committed as the city in these first 15 months since I've been mayor. That includes maintaining our current approach that uses a public health lens for looking at solutions, using best practices, and supporting staff, especially frontline workers who are both city employees, but also our partners who are doing the hard work of supporting the folks, especially when it gets into the hotter and colder parts of the year. We continue to work on our advocacy strategies, but clearly we need to find more new voices to join us in making sure we're having better impact on state policy making, because there has been real inaction by the state of Vermont. I want to emphasize we're always here as partners because we're in this together to solve these entrenched systemic failures in the state. But we've seen inaction. This last session, the one and only bill, H91, that moved through the body, both the House and Senate, which started as a real effort to compromise with the governor out of the gate, included at one point some money for local municipalities like Burlington, who have been holding a disproportionate amount of folks who are experiencing homelessness in the state, failed because the governor vetoed it. He vetoed it so quickly that the mayors, for which at least 7 out of the 8 of us were about to write a letter, couldn't even get the letter out to the governor because he had already predetermined he was going to veto this one and only piece of legislation that even touched homelessness, which is a deep disappointment. And I continue to ask the governor to be a better partner with Burlington as well as the other cities and towns in the state. I'm not going to read each one of these to you, but we're maintaining and prioritizing our similar approaches to programming and models that work. Our partnerships continue in the region as well, as I mentioned, with mayors, but also the county. One thing that Sarah and I were talking about is I want to make sure folks keep in context, though, that virtually we're a little bit like the watermelon and then the rest of the fruit basket in terms of towns' ability to resource this work. They have not been seeing the trends at such a disproportionate level, so we're further along in our policy development and our staffing up to respond to homelessness than, say, South Burlington, Heinsberg, and other towns, at least in Chittenden County. However, we are continuing to partner because we have been a leader. We have been a sharer of resources and policies, including the mayor of Newport, for example. They have a family for the first time camping outside downtown. They have no policies written. They have no staff. They have a fraction of the town staff that the city of Burlington has. So we've been sharing our expertise, our policies as templates to help communities who are a little behind us but seeing similar trends come forward. And including leading. Sarah mentioned a point that we decided to step ahead of the state and shelter people at -10 degrees. That was a very important act of humanity and public health. And now the state is now exploring a different standard than they once were. I want to emphasize the last point here on focusing on permanent solutions. We need to amp up our attention to making sure more affordable housing comes online, that we can track people into this who are experiencing homelessness or at the risk of losing housing, because that's another piece of it. We do nothing if we can't stabilize housing for folks who are at risk, meaning they're behind in rent or they are one paycheck away from not being able to afford the next spike in rent. So these pieces of policy need to come together to stabilize our housing reality in Burlington. We are, as I mentioned in the budgeting process, part of that to develop a robust strategy is hiring the one and only new position in our budget, which will be a housing policy advisor at the end of this fiscal year. That's because we had to close a gap. But that will help us continue to innovate and accelerate our approach to housing. Period. Thank you. Questions for Sarah, or if I can help, I will help.
Thank you for that very thorough update. I'd like to get a sense of how many people want to be recognized on this item. 1, 2, anybody? 3, 4? Okay, 5. Okay, so, we had allotted 30 minutes for this item, but the counter's already down to 6, so I may extend this one a little bit, but be mindful of that as you make your comments or ask your questions. And so I'll start over on this side with Councilor Grant.
Thank you. I want to thank Sarah Russell. I want to thank the mayor for this presentation and a reminder of what we continue to deal with. I know it's very hard to fully understand what's happening in our city. This did not happen overnight. This is something that has steadily gotten worse for some time. I think as someone who's been following this, because the Central District has been the most affected, although it's definitely branching out to other districts, other wards. I remember one of my first meetings as counselors, the then mayor accused me and a fellow counselor of trying to propose camping as a housing solution. When we were trying to say, this is what we're seeing, this is what we have to start to work on, and we have to have a plan, especially knowing that soon after that meeting was the first hotel dump, if you will, where literally people were dumped out in the streets, and we knew, but there wasn't the acknowledgement. There was this political, you're trying to push camping as a housing solution. That was deeply concerning, especially knowing that state agencies were in fact giving out tents and sleeping bags. So I appreciate all the work that's being done. I appreciate the laser focus on the data. I don't believe that compassion is enabling or giving people permission. I believe, in fact, compassion is finally dealing with the root causes. We know what has not worked. And this rhetoric that we have coming from the federal level, this rhetoric we have coming from the governor's office, is failing us. It's failing us, it's failing other municipalities, it's failing our country. So we have to think about, if we supply porta potties, how is that enabling people? We have an absolute shortage of public bathrooms. We can't complain about public urination and defecation and then say that we're not going to try to allow people to have an option. I have to say that the counter isn't up, so I normally follow that. I want to be mindful as to how much time I have left.
I don't have the right adapter for my computer, and
Okay.
Councilor Travers didn't leave it with me, so I have a timer that I've been
All right.
mindful
How
of here.
much time do I have?
Well, I started you at about 5 minutes, and I'm down to a minute 26.
All right, thank you for that. So I guess I'll leave it there. I think we have to, people keep saying that we're enabling, people keep saying we're given permission. There is no one on this council that is enabling any of the activity that we see. There is no one that's giving permission. I think the closest person who did that was our former police chief, because he took enforcement for certain crimes down to 0. And that created an environment where people felt that they could just go into our businesses and do whatever they want because they knew there would be no response. So I'm appreciative of Chief Burke's work to reverse that trend, to increase the visibility downtown, to be responsive to calls, and I encourage people to get back to reporting again, because it's really important. Thank you both.
Thank you, Councilor Grant. I'll turn to Councilor Schachter next.
Thank you, Acting President Barlow. And thank you, Sarah and the Mayor's Office and everyone who's working so hard on a really intractable and very, we're in crisis. And so I'm grateful to all the minds who are working on this. I know we talk a lot about the work we're doing in our homelessness response and the services we're providing and the service providers in our community. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to sort of the regional coordination, the coordination at the continuum of care level, the role that Burlington is playing in that work, and sort of how we can be sort of regionally and at the state level really like working to also help address, which I know you're doing, and I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Thanks for that question, and I appreciated that you emailed me ahead, so I was like, I know what I'm going to say. I wanted to share that I just attended recently, last week, a convening of municipal leaders it was convened by and facilitated by the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, where they're working on trying to identify where there might be advocacy around the upcoming legislative session as it relates to public safety and homelessness. So that work is beginning, and we're really involved in developing that. I think that from the COC perspective, I know you worked with the COC in another state, and I'm jealous because in many other states we have COCs are run by county-level municipality. In Vermont, we don't have that, and so we kind of supplement that. Burlington tends to take more of a lead because we are, kind of the largest urban area in Chittenden County. Oh, can I keep going? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that you can continue, please.
Okay. We are the largest urban area in Chittenden County, so we tend to, play a larger role in that, in that work. We do work on connecting with town managers, especially from Williston, Shelburne, Winooski, and I actually attend a housing roundtable that the Mayor Lott in Winooski convenes once a month to talk about homelessness, but they have a real massive housing insecurity challenge there, and sort of quality of housing, doubling up of new American and vulnerable families. So each region has its own kind of challenges. Could it be stronger? Absolutely. And I think that one of the things we talked about today, which is sort of where I'll land on, is that our work in this area is a response to a problem that's right in front of us. And it's, we can say this is certainly a regional challenge. If other towns are not seeing this problem in their communities, then I think they're at a loss as to how to respond. It's not if it's not right in front of them, right in their neighborhoods. So I think that it's we do I go and actually have an upcoming meeting with the Williston formed a housing committee. I went to a Knights of Columbus meeting last month, and also communicate with the town manager in Shelburne as well. So there's definitely is some outreach, but it's something we need to continue to work to pull people in.
Thank you.
Next, I'll turn to Councilor Newbeeser.
Thank you so much for all your work and for presenting to us. I wondered, because it's for my brain and for the public's brain, if you could give a sense just for clarity, because the breakdown information is helpful, but just to give a rough estimate of sort of the total problem, both at the state level, but also the region, because I know there's a ton of different categories, a bunch of different services for different folks with different needs. Folks often talked about some folks need an extra $100, quote unquote, to get over the hump. It's a money issue. Some folks it's a mental health issue. Some folks it's substance use, etc. But just in total, under all those buckets, what is the actual need versus, and it's sort of hard to give a high overview, I guess, but what capacity do we have in terms of actual beds overall?
That is a big question. I think that I would start with coming back to our local capacity. So locally, we have 228, as you'll see from here, 228 year-round shelter beds. On the state level, we have just a handful over 600 shelter beds. So when we think about the need and we look at, the number of folks who are experiencing homelessness, and who need to have access to shelter, there is nowhere near enough. When we look at the 600 beds that are available on the state level, combine that with the 1,100 rooms that are available across the state of the motel program, in theory, and then look at the number of people who are experiencing homelessness in our coordinated entry system is around 4,500 people. So this is not we do not have the capacity. I think that we need to focus on those long-term solutions, as the mayor mentioned, around affordable housing development. However, when we have families with children sleeping under a tarp in the woods, that becomes the priority. And it's critical for us to look ahead and be proactive and plan. And when we are responding as a community to crisis every 80 days, when somebody leaves a motel room, work stops. We are figuring out how to get folks tents. Somebody leaving a motel in a wheelchair with oxygen, where are they going to plug that in? Can we get them a battery that we can charge for them overnight? Mom with a 11-year-old living in the woods, and the child has some significant challenges. These are the things that we have to respond to in the moment because of the lack of stability at the state level. And so I think that, yes, we are sorely lacking shelter capacity. We're sorely lacking, service capacity. We're sorely lacking affordable housing capacity. But we can't even begin to unravel and plan for any of those things until we reach a certain level of stability, from the state standpoint. So I don't know if that answers your question specifically.
No,
helpful?
it's helpful. Yeah, I think it gives a broader context. Do we know of any, or again, a rough number of how many children who are in the Burlington school system who are struggling with these issues, their families specifically?
In the Burlington School District, it's important to, without sort of going down a whole road, the school districts actually use a different definition of homeless than HUD does. So school districts use what's called McKinney-Vento, and that encompasses households that are doubled up and households that might be self-paying in a motel. The HUD definition does not capture that number. So the data sets are a little bit off. We do coordinate with the Burlington School District, the Champlain Valley School District, and the Williston School District specifically, Winooski School District. And we don't give out data if it's less than 12 people. So at this time, I can't give out data specific to the Burlington School District.
Was that all? Okay. I knew I had Councilor Singh, Councilor McKnight. Are there any others who wish to be recognized? And Councilor Litwin and Carpenter. Okay, well, let's be mindful of the time if we can. I do have, Lori has a timer for 5 minutes, but I would appreciate anybody who can make their comments in less than that. I'll turn to Councilor Singh next.
Thank you, Acting President Barlow. Thank you, Sarah, for everything you do. I had a question that I'd sent you before, but Councilor Schachter kind of covered that also. So I'm going to change a little bit here, but I also did want to thank you. I got a chance to sit down with you earlier this year, and it's clear to me when you sit with you, how much you do care for the people in our community. So, I just want people to recognize that she does have a lot of compassion and care, and that's very important for a position like this. So I'm going with the different question is, your comments suggest what you were just saying to response to Councilor Newbeezer. This office is doing things that are really outside of what an office like this would be doing when you're saying we're getting oxygen and things like that. So I want to ask on that front, you know, when we had talked, you said a lot of the people in the hotel motel program were in the more southern parts of Chittenden County because that's where many of the hotels are doing. Can you describe what those people, you know, not all of them came to Burlington, what those other towns did when those people were exited the program? Are they living in encampments in those areas, or, you know, speak to that, please?
In other parts of the state or other parts of Chittenden County?
You were saying, when we talked, you were saying that many of the hotels were like down Shelburne, Charlotte,
Oh,
that
yeah.
kind of area. So I was just wondering what type of response they had in comparison to what you're telling me our city is doing. You know, I would hear what other peers that are close by are doing.
I think that there were exits on or around July 1st in Colchester, South Burlington, and Shelburne, I think, for the most part. In terms of where those folks go, the state doesn't track where people go when they leave the program, and it is challenging in general to gather data from the state. We didn't hear from other towns in terms of what needs were. I think that there were, you know, outreach providers that were at, you know, motels. I think that there is some camping that's happening in other portions of Chittenden County, not necessarily for the first time, but at a rate that they haven't seen before. It's more visible. I think that when people come to Burlington to camp, they know that they're camping in a pretty public way, and so folks who choose to camp in other more rural areas of both the region and the state tend to hide more and to be more hidden. That's why I stress the importance of having access to shelter, because when people leave shelter, we become disconnected, they become invisible to some degree. So I think that we're still, you know, kind of understanding the impacts from the regional level, but folks tend to not be as visible in more rural areas.
Thank you.
Councilor McKnight is next, and then I'm going to go to Councilor Litwin and then Carpenter, if there's nobody on this side.
Okay.
And then Councilor Bergman.
Thank you, Acting President Barlow, and thank you, Sarah, for this very detailed presentation and just for all of your work and your team's work as well. I had just a very quick question that I didn't send to you before because it's based on the numbers on the slides. On the encampment response piece, the part where it says that we've removed 37 encampments, 5 and then 2. I'm just wondering what's sort of like the, I guess it would be sort of the denominator there. So we've removed 37 camps in city-owned parks and 5 on public land and 2 under exigent circumstances, but how many are there in the city overall? Like what, basically I'm trying to get at how many encampments or tent sites are considered sort of tolerable and how many are we actively removing, to get a sense, just to get a sense of the scale?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think it fluctuates, you know, pretty constantly. So based on our most recent conversation that we have with frontline staff, that includes the urban park rangers and the CSLs, as well as other parks and DPW staff, I think that we're seeing approximately 50 to 70 camps at this point in the city. Maybe more than that in some cases, but folks tend to be a little more transient, I think. We do have a focus on enforcing the ordinance, the no camping ordinance in parks, so that's why you see the larger number in parks. And, you know, on public land, we're constantly assessing, you know, like what is kind of the state of what's happening? Are there impacts that are related to, you know, public safety or ecology on site? So there are a number of factors that we're using to, you know, kind of assess, you know, where camps are, what the needs are, what the issues are, and if there's action that is required.
Thank you.
I'll go to Councilor Litwin next, and then Bergman, and then Carpenter.
Thanks a lot. And I won't repeat other folks' questions because everybody had really great questions tonight. So thank you for the presentation. Some of my questions got answered. So I think one of the questions I have is really around best practice alignment and thinking about who gets to decide what best practices are, especially when there's not always agreement, even in the fields of public health or harm reduction, about what are the best practices in harm reduction, for example. And we hear testimony regularly from impacted community members who are also being harmed, but what does harm reduction look like for them? Because they're not the focus of that harm reduction, they're not the patient. And so I feel that I sit at this table tasked to think about everyone in the community because no one exists in a vacuum. So I guess my question is, where can we read more on the city's position on the best practice? Sorry for the microphone going out. The city's position on those best practices, is that something we can get online? And the positions on what is the city's position on best practices for harm reduction, for example? And additionally, I did want to ask if, we're talking a lot about housing, which is so critical to all the other domino pieces, right? And so I guess my question is, are we also looking at and keeping data on how many people we're serving that we have successfully transitioned into recovery pathways? So how many people have actively taken up any referrals that you or your office has made? Thanks.
I wanted to note that I put some links embedded within the memo that link to national best practice around housing first, especially. I think you're going to hear a presentation in a couple of weeks around, the city's work related to harm reduction, including the Overdose Prevention Center and updates in that on that initiative, so I won't speak as much to that. But in terms of the housing first, I mean that is a data-informed best practice. So
yeah, I have to reclaim my time. I agree that housing first is important. I just wanted to ask you if there were specifically, how are we getting folks into pathways of recovery, which is really important to me, and I can't help but notice that Turning Point also dropped off leaflets for us today. So how many of those folks are actually being referred to recovery programs and taking that up? And we're hearing, conversation around civil commitment, for example, but actually there's even debate around that within the city around serving victims, because we've got folks who have been deemed not competent for trial, who will continue to commit crimes against people, and those folks continue to be released. And so I guess my question is the city taking a position that civil commitment is not we wouldn't even want that as an option for folks who are committing crimes? And I just want to point out, I always think it's problematic when we talk about unhoused folks or folks who are experiencing houselessness monolithically. Some folks have substance use disorder, some don't. And so I guess my question there is, do we have a position on that as well?
I would defer to the mayor on that.
Councilor Litwin, this work session is designed on looking at the data for folks who are experiencing homelessness. You're mentioning a lot of different topics that Sarah Russell is not our point on, and I would ask that you hold questions until our work session related to substance use disorder. Please don't interrupt me. Let me finish what I'm saying. I know you have done before, so I'm just being proactive in claiming my space so I can answer your question. So we have a work session on the 25th with Teresa Vizina, and then also related to other tracking of data. We've done that through CompStat, or revamping that so we can be able to see where our whole comprehensive community safety response, what that's doing, including the situation table and other tools that are new and not ready to be looking at in depth in terms of number and analysis quite yet.
Okay, thank you. And I will disagree with that because it was brought up specifically in the slides that we were talking about the presidential order, and this was specifically brought up. So I do believe it's related to the work session because that was put into the slides. And so I believe that we need to continue to have conversations around how do we both serve and support people, but also make sure that we are helping people improve their station and situation? And I will end there.
Thank you, Councilor Letwin. Councilor Bergman's next.
Thank you. I just want to thank you and everybody who's involved in particularly I'm going to say removal because that's the language that you used of. You can hear me. That's remarkable. Of 2 camps at the head of the 127 bike path on Manhattan Drive. And one of them was somebody who was removed under the policy here. And I just want to say that everybody took incredible concern and care for a person who, and I live across the street, so I got to see her many times over many days, was not causing problems except for the discomfort that people had. And it is discomforting to see somebody whose life is out there. But Neil and others, Anna took great care. And she moved, and then the interdepartmental team removed the debris that was left. It was totally garbage. In the rain at 7 o'clock in the morning, I went out to thank the folks. So that was just really good work, and that was one of the encampments that is listed here because it's during this time period. And the other one was just removed last Monday, so a week ago, also in relationship. And that was an exigent circumstance that the police did a great job. And then there was, again, important and quick action by many people. So I just want to say that those were 2 of the sort of extremes that occur. One where somebody's just trying to live and had nowhere to go. And, you know, you can pop that bubble somewhere, that balloon somewhere, but that person is going to get harmed in that if you, don't let them do what they need to do in the course of time while still trying to get them to do that. And you guys did that. And the other one was obviously a case that was a serious and problem that I'll talk about it in my council remarks. But I mean, it was just really fine work, and I just want to thank you guys.
Thank you, Councilor Bergman. And Councilor Carpenter will get the last word on the work section.
Thank you, and I do want to thank you too, Sarah, and I appreciate all my colleagues' remarks. I'm just going to end with suggesting, maybe to the mayor, but I think we need a firmer stick. I appreciate the work the Alliance does on the coalition, but we've got 14 towns in this county. Most of them do not contribute to this problem. I was curious, the gentleman who spoke about the old poor farm system. Horrible. Should have gone. But every town in the county contributed to the poor farm system. They gave dollars to it. And if they didn't do it in their own town, they combined with another town and created a poor farm for several pounds. There was just a lot more work. We had the whole conversation about safe parking. Safe parking in Chittenden County should not be a problem. We should be able to answer that one because the clientele have a car, right? And so it's just, I remember back in 30 years ago, Act 200, big planning grant, and the state was honest. Every town had to have a plan where they were going to build affordable housing and housing just in general. Well, let's fast forward here. Where town and how are you going to contribute to shelter capacity? I know we need housing, absolutely. But in the interim, we need shelter capacity. Is there not, in at least 6 more towns, one empty building that we could use for something? Is there not half a dozen parking lots that we could use for something? And I understand treading lightly, so I'm really not putting it on the mayor, I'm putting it on all of us, or the legislature collectively, to say, we've got to attack this. You know, towns have to build housing now, they drag their feet. We have to provide more capacity, and I just somehow, some way encourage us to do that. Thanks.
Thank you, and I think that'll conclude the work session on homelessness, unless there's any others. I don't see anybody else. Okay, well, thank you, Special Assistant Russell and the mayor and her team for giving us this update. Next on our agenda is City Council General Affairs. And can I get a sense of people who want to speak during this one? McKnight, Bergman, Grant. We'll start there. Go ahead, Councilor McKnight.
Thank you, Acting President Barlow. I'm happy to have an opportunity tonight to clarify some of the confusion that was brought up earlier in public comment, and also to provide some context for those watching at home. So last month, a daily food distribution group that many felt was tangentially related to increased crime levels in the garage moved out of the city-owned Marketplace garage. And so after that happened, I was curious about what the impact was at the garage specifically. So I took the time to ask around, and specifically to ask someone that works there every day. Interestingly, and I think somewhat troublingly, at that point when I made the remarks at our last meeting, which I believe was July 14th, as far as I know, I was the only one who had taken the time to ask the sheriffs at the garage about this across the city council and the mayor's administration. In my remarks at the last meeting, I stated that since the group had left the garage, crime had gone down. This information that I shared was based on a phone conversation that I had with one of the sheriffs that works there in the garage. The information he shared with me was qualitative in nature and not based on any kind of written report or database of incidents, because as I learned in talking about this with him, the city does not keep those type of records for the Marketplace garage, despite the many stated commitments to evidence-based decision-making that we've heard about tonight. I think we should keep track of this information, and the next time the sheriff's contract comes up for discussion, I will certainly be advocating for that, and I hope others will as well. But for now, at this location, conversations and anecdotal data are our primary source of information that we do have access to. His comments were the observation of a law enforcement professional who has been spending time in the garage for the past several months and who unequivocally stated that yes, crime is down since Food Not Cops moved out, which he confirmed again to me in subsequent conversations, including one that I had with him today. He also has confirmed this to the media. So I will in no way be issuing a retraction because everything I said is factually accurate as it was relayed to me. Sometimes, especially in government, we get information or data that does not match the narrative that we have constructed in our minds, and this can be difficult to face. But unfortunately for all of us, all anyone has to do is walk outside the doors of this building and into City Hall Park to see the many problems that we are facing. We do not need a spreadsheet to tell us that this is a city in crisis and that it's past time to act. Moreover, if we go down a path where every city employee or contractor is questioned or admonished by councilors and the mayor's administration for giving their professional opinion, that creates a chilling effect that can only lead us towards fascism.
Excuse me, there's a point of order.
There was reference directly to the mayor admonishing service providers. It doesn't seem to be in line with decorum as previously talked about on this body.
I would ask that you don't admonish the mayor.
I would actually challenge that because the rulings have been made in the past that the administration is exempted from that, that it's towards council, not the administration.
Well, I didn't recognize you, Councilor Letwin.
Point of order.
Go ahead and proceed, Councilor McKnight.
Thanks, that was all. I'll reserve the rest of my time for a second round if necessary.
Okay, next I have Councilor Bergman.
Thank you, and I don't think that we get to reserve time for the second round. There's this first and second round. But be that as it may, I want to thank my neighbors.
Point of order.
Excuse me, but there is no second round. This is a City Council General Affairs. This isn't a back and forth. People can say what they need to say in regard. People can say what they need to in regard to City Council General Affairs. This is not a debate. These are statements that councilors are making. So go ahead, continue,
Thank
Councilor
you.
Bergman.
That was my point. I want to thank my neighbors, the Burlington Police Department, and all other departments that responded quickly and effectively to the gunfire, graffitiing, illegal dumping, and encampment by an unmonitored convicted sex offender at the top of the 127 bike path on Manhattan Drive last week. Neighborhood reports spurred action. It shows how important making reports is, including See, Click, Fix for dumping and graffiti. The police responded promptly to the gunfire and continue to investigate. I believe neighbors are reassured by their responsiveness. The trash cans that were defaced were promptly replaced by parks, and the dumped couch was removed. BPD, DPW, and BED promptly removed the encampment. These actions confirm to me that we are making progress and making our community safer. We've got more patrols, more responsiveness, more collaboration and engagement, and it is making a difference. When all the stakeholders are involved and committed, we can and will make progress. Looking over a period longer than a series of events over a few days, this also reinforces the need for people to report incidents because it builds a database that informs us as to what is happening and where we need to place our resources. Real data matters. This is why the claim regarding the impact of the move of Food Not Cops from the sidewalk at the garage to the sidewalk by the park is so troubling to me. Not only was the claim not supported by my own and many other people's observations and discussions, but in following up on it, I found out that the sheriff's office does not keep any records on incidents of any of the issues and problems cited. They keep no such records. There are no records regarding the problems, let alone the time of day, the location, the relationship to the food program. I am interested in getting records because, as I said, they would help us figure out what is happening and why, but they don't exist. The only records the sheriff has are those resulting from incidents recorded in Valcourt, and the problems cited are not ones that they record there. The information is anecdotal at best, but it was reported as demonstrably factual, and it is not. The implication that the feeding program will lead to even more problems in City Hall Park than we had before they moved to College Street sidewalk is not based on accurate and fair data. But it gets reported in the media. People tuned into our meetings. Unwarranted fears are stoked. It reinforces the false belief that downtown is unsafe to come to. This is not what our downtown needs to attract people. Despite our problems, downtown is safe. The Festival of Fools is proof of that. We need accurate and fair data. I owe it to my constituents and the public as a whole to provide it. Otherwise, we are apt to make policy and operational decisions that are harmful, wasteful, and non-impactful. Let's not make that mistake with the feeding program. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bergman. I have Councilor Grant in the queue. Are there any other councilors? Councilor Singh after Councilor Grant.
I just want to make a quick comment on quote-unquote involuntary institutionalization. Definitely in our community over the years, we've seen some issues, particularly with people with severe mental health problems that they're causing harm to themselves or causing harm to everyone else. But we have to ask, we keep throwing this out again without fully recognizing failures at the state level. When Waterbury Hospital, and that was not the end-all be-all, we all know that, but when that hospital was washed away by Irene, we never replaced it. So before we just start throwing those terms around, we have to be honest about the fact that we don't have a place. Like, we are so at a loss, not a loss, that's not what I want to say. It's just that we are under-resourced, and we can throw away this term, but where are people going to go? So it would be great to have a tier system for some individuals where jail is not appropriate because they won't get the treatment that they need, but we don't have that. So that's another state-level situation. I'd like to remind people about the Public Safety Committee meetings once a month, the fourth Thursday of the month, and they can be accessed and looked at later times if people can't watch when they are live. We get data from the Burlington Police Department. We get data from the Burlington Fire Department. We get a lot of excellent data. If we're missing data or we'd like to fill holes with regards to what data we need, we ask the chiefs. Quantitative data is important. Quantitative data is what we need in order to make fact-based, not fear-based decisions. Quantitative data should drive our conversations. If there is no quantitative data, I believe as a council that we do have to be mindful because we hear all kinds of things. I'm kind of reminded about a recent post on social media where someone said, I came to Burlington, had a good day, had a good meal, and I wasn't stabbed. And it's because of all of these stories, some of which are not true. And when we look at quantitative data, we have to look at trends. We can't say within a couple of weeks, this for sure happened. And what's being referenced was some things that, with regards to the Sheriff's Department, they do not clean up human waste. So they can't speak to that. They can't speak to the effects of a lunch that was there operates 1 hour a day, and then they're gone. Everyone who lives downtown knows that this activity has been going on for some time now. They know the activity happens in multiple garages. We've seen businesses as well who have to put up fencing in their alleyways, in the areas of their vestibules. Any place that could be shelter can be a potential problem. We just have to be very, very careful. Data should not be confusing. And I would like to see, if we want to talk about being a collaborative council, I would like to see councilors be willing to have conversations to come to the Public Safety Committee where we talk about data. Once again, we talk about data all the time to say, what can we get? What is available to us? We can't do anything that could potentially confuse or mislead people. We have to be very careful. I called to find out which deputy provided information, and I found out it was the Chittenden County Sheriff himself, because he was filling in for the deputy that normally does those shifts, because that particular deputy is also a state legislature.
You're at time, Councilor Grant. Could you wrap up?
Yes. He didn't have enough time there to make those decisions and to make these statements. And we are not serving the community well. And when I asked for the data, I was advised that it was refused to me because I would weaponize it. What the heck does that mean? What is that saying? We're not collaborative. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Grant. And I think the only other person, I have Councilor Singh in the queue.
Yes.
And then Councilor Letwin, I guess we'll close this out.
Thank you, Councilor President Barlow. I sit here and we're talking about debating, whether the percentages were correct or not. And I think this is what a lot of citizens say to me. What's going on right now is what they don't like about our council, that we sit here and we do these types of things. We did know that the garage was a hot spot. We know that there are other hot spots in this city. We do need feedback from people on the ground, whether it's a sheriff, garage staff, staff who work on the streets, and we have to rely on that to make some decisions. We should be seeking as much feedback as we can from any of these hotspots and sit here and talk about solutions to these problems, rather than debating whether the percentage or whether it's data-driven. You know, some things with safety aren't in the data. They're on how people feel and how they feel about our city. And quantitative data is very important. I agree with you 100%. But it's not like we're running correlations and correlation coefficients and regression to figure what's causing what in the city. And for that to be statistically significant, where we could come up with correlation and causation, it would take years and years. And we've been waiting years and years to deal with these hotspots. And when we do this, this is what our citizens don't appreciate about what we do at this council. So we really got to focus on solutions to these things, and we know that these hotspots are out there, and we need as much feedback as we can, anecdotally and statistics. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Singh. I have Councilor Letwin and Councilor Newbeezer, and I'd like to close this out so we can move on to some other of our council business. And Councilor Broderick. So go ahead, Councilor Letwin.
Thank you. And thank you, Councilor Singh. That was eloquently put, and I appreciate that perspective. I have to just agree completely with my fellow Councilor Singh, because we're all out there talking to people and trying to gather qualitative, quantitative information as much as possible to do our jobs while we also do our full-time jobs, raise our children, and you know, all the other responsibilities we have that we do in our free time, everyone at this table. We frequently make anecdotal comments, and when we had the discussions about food not cops or bombs, there were many anecdotal comments made. Respectfully, my deep respect, Councilor Broderick said that, you know, made comments about that moving this will not solve any problems downtown. Councilor Newbeezer said food not bombs is not contributing to the safety issue. Moving food not bombs is not going to solve our issues in the garage, but we didn't have quantitative information for that. Councilor Kane, again, respectfully said that this will create a bigger mess. More hungry people will be on their streets. Where was the data for that comment? Just from moving it. So what we did have for data was, and anyone can go back to May 21st in Civic Clerk to our budget presentations. It was a Wednesday, where our parking director came and gave us a presentation on that garage being $60,000 down in revenue, and none of the other garages were down in revenue. We heard specifically from her, a director, that the reasons that people were saying they didn't want to park there, or her professional expertise, was that people were concerned about the activity in the garage. And this was brought up in discussion. And this is all rewatchable, 521 on Civic Clerk. So I didn't think we would be having this discussion tonight, but I welcome it, and I think that I don't think that we can't share anecdotally what we have learned from folks. And I have also gone out and talked to employees, security, folks who do security, and heard all sorts of things related to the lunch that I have not spoken about here. And lastly, just sort of getting off of this topic, I just want to say CDNR is doing a lot of work this summer. We're holding double time meetings at quite a pace to try to work through the syringe litter report. We've sent out tons of stakeholder emails. Councilor Schachter particularly is working on certain aspects. I'm working on certain aspects. And I invite folks to the August CDNR working session on the syringe litter report, August 7th. And then we also have our full meeting where we'll have more than just that item on the agenda on August 20th, but that agenda is not set yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Newbeezer. Councilor Litwin. I'll turn to Councilor Newbeezer, and Councilor Broderick will close us out.
We're having a lot of conversation about qualitative and quantitative data, and I agree, and I've shared my experience and talked to constituents and value very much when folks say, hey, I was going downtown or in a public park and this was my experience, and that absolutely has a place in developing policy. I just Googled quantitative data is a numerical data that can be counted or measured like height, weight, or test scores. Qualitative data, on the other hand, is descriptive and non-numerical, often involving words, observations, or descriptions. Okay, so we're clear on definitions. I quote from July 14th, respectfully, my colleague, Councilor Becca Brown McKnight, quote, this is a quote, your own words, it's not imputing your character. Back to Resolution 8.1, some updates there. Data from the Sheriff's Department shows that the very day the lunch program left the Marketplace garage, they saw at least a 50%, that's a number, decrease in things like open heroin use, open crack use, overdoses, public urination, defecation, as well as sexual solicitations at the downtown parking garage the day that they left, with some reports as high as reporting a 75% decrease in all those upon the lunch program's departure.
Point of order.
What's your point of order?
Is Councilor Newbeezer suggesting that we are not allowed to put numbers into words?
That's not a point of order.
Continue, Councilor Newbeezer, but sort of be careful.
Okay. What I'm suggesting is that that was the statement made. That is not a statement based on one's experience. That is putting forward a statistic claiming it is from the Sheriff's Department in Chittenden County.
I'm sorry, what's your point of order?
That is an incorrect characterization of my statement. It was based on the experience of the sheriff.
Quoting the statement verbatim. How is it?
It's a verbatim quote from the sheriff.
Well, let's wait.
No,
but this is important because facts actually do matter in this world.
But if you can sort of not impugn Councilor McKnight.
Okay, so then I'll shift, because if that is a quote from the Chittenden County Sheriff's Department, this is in response to a public records request. Crystal Gringus, records officer for the Chittenden County Sheriff's Department, confirmed in writing, quote, there are no records in regards to tracking illegal activity in the Marketplace garage, nor any decrease in such activity. Another response, quote, to a public records request from Sheriff Daniel Gamlin. The Sheriff's Department has no written or recorded communications with Councilor McKnight regarding any claimed 50 to 75% decrease in activity. That is in response to a direct question on this specific claim on this floor from the Sheriff's Department. I am not trying to impugn anybody's motives, nor am I trying to raise this issue to win political points. That is a bold claim that has real impacts on hundreds of people volunteering their time to cook food and hand it out to people who are literally starving, who don't have access to food elsewhere. So how we allow that, and then I got to grant it to WCAX. I mean, what journalistic integrity, just throwing the numbers online without even checking it. I mean, talk about ambulance chasing nonsense. You should be ashamed of yourselves for reporting that. Thank you.
Councilor Broderick, if you could be brief, I'd like to move us along and get back to our agenda. This is not very productive right now.
Yeah. Thank you, Councilor Newbeezer, for voicing in better words than I could. But I'd like to bring us back to the core issue of the situation and relating it to the where we are getting our qualitative data, which I do think is important. I do think qualitative data is important, and it does inform policy, especially when you're talking to the people who are on the ground. But I believe that when talking about a valuable and much needed community service, I'm getting my qualitative data from a variety of sources, but I think the most important one is for those that are most directly impacted by effects to such services. So I think, I do think that qualitative data is important, but I think one of the many failings that our systems have over those who are the greatest victims of our society is that we are not getting the qualitative data from them, and that inhibits our ability to create the sort of compassionate policy that we truly need. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Broderick. Councilor Schechter is asked to be recognized, so I'm going to recognize her, and I think that's everybody who's wanted to speak. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Acting President Barlow. I wanted to close us out with I want to repeat Councilor Singh's discussion around really taking a solutions-oriented mindset to our work. And I think, I want to hold that we're all here, truly every single one of us in this room, whether you're sitting in the audience, thank you all who are participating, or whether we're up here sitting, that we really care about this city. We're really trying to do right, and we're working as hard as we can and as quickly as we can towards solutions that impact real people. And I think, I just kind of want to put out a call for all of us to hold that it often is diverse perspectives and diverse experiences that make for the strongest policy, and that I think when we find ourselves in these bickering moments, instead of holding that there can and are multiple truths and a lot of complex things happening in our city right now, I think that we, I fear that it hinders the solutions and the progress that we need. And so, and that when we demonize each other, it's hard for me to sit here and not really hold that. I do believe we're all here for the right reasons and to do the right thing and because we really care. So I just kind of want to end on that note and encourage all of us to continue to work together towards solutions and work constructively together.
Thank you, Councilor Schechter. And that will end City Council General Affairs. And so next we're going to move on to our consent agenda. And I would entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none. Also, I meant to recognize Councilor Kane earlier, who's been online all evening, and I failed to recognize him at the beginning of the meeting, so I just wanted folks to know he's there now. But seeing no further discussion on this item, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that passes unanimously. Next. Now, finally, at 9:05, we're on to our deliberative agenda. And I'm just scrolling up to get there. Okay, the first item on our deliberative agenda, 8.1, is a gross receipts ordinance, and I will turn to Councilor Bergman on this item.
Thank you, and you're doing great. So I'd move to waive the reading and approve the second reading of the proposed receipts tax ordinance and have the floor back after a second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Letwin. Go ahead, Councilor Bergman.
Thank you. What we have here is, and our committee deliberated for a long time about this, and it was a very productive conversation. And what we have here is what I think a good and sensible approach for right now, which is to maintain the status quo and not blow up the budget. We built a budget based on the actions that we're taking in this proposed ordinance that I hope we vote for unanimously. And there are a number of issues that are in front of us as a council this year that at the end of the year will mean the budget itself. And so the permanency of the gross receipts tax is going to be in front of us. We've got some changes that we'll have to do with regard to, that are going to actually happen with regard to the short-term rental tax, and this sort of sets that in motion for the next year, but we'll be able to have those conversations in relationship to the budget going forward. And there were a number of other changes that we still have in committee that were requested by the City Attorney's Office and the CAO. And those are meant to harmonize our gross receipts tax with the state equivalent tax in a way that should actually make the administration of this by businesses, by restaurants and bars, much better and easier for them, clarify it, and therefore will clarify it for us. That's a long way of describing 2 hours of conversation that we had, and I would ask that you support this unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bergman. Do any councilors want to be recognized on this item? Councilor Carpenter?
Thanks. I just want to affirm Councilor Bergman's conversation. There's a lot behind this, but we really do need to pass this tonight. We'll have more conversation in the next year about next year's gross receipts, but we need to pass this tonight.
Go ahead, Councilor Schechter.
I just wanted to express gratitude to the Ordinance Committee and to the Mayor's administration that this holds open the path to reconsidering a full 9% of the short-term rental tax going into the Housing Trust Fund moving forward. So I appreciate the work that went into helping to clarify that.
Are there any other councilors who want to be recognized on this item? Go ahead, Councilor Singh.
Thank you, Council President Barlow. Thank you to the Ordinance Committee. Of course, I will support this, that we made a budget resolution that is dependent on this, and I wouldn't think to move away from that, especially considering how tough the budget was this year. I do think we should revisit this again next year. Again, I know we talked about it the night it went back to Ordinance Committee. It does certainly influence businesses' choices of whether or not they want to locate in Burlington. I found out this weekend that J. Crew is going to locate in Williston. When I hear those type of businesses that used to be in Burlington, in downtown, and they're choosing the outlying suburbs, it makes me wonder where we are on the competitive landscape. Gross receipts is a valuable tool for this city, for its budget. But we have to find ways to grow it, not by increasing it, but by increasing the economic vitality of the city. There are also a lot of small businesses, that have all-in pricing, whether it be bagels or coffee, smaller items or smaller menu takeout that don't increase their pricing with an increase in gross receipts. And those businesses who rely on high volume and a small margin are hurt a lot by this. And those are the businesses that have been the backbone of this community for as long as I've lived here. And I want to see them survive. I want to see more businesses like that in Burlington so this city can remain affordable for everybody. But thank you again to the Ordinance Committee.
Thank you, Councilor Singh, Councilor McKnight, and Councilor Letwin.
Thank you, Acting President Barlow. So I will not be supporting this tonight because I cannot, in good conscience, support continuing a tax on businesses when we've sort of hitched our budget wagon, so to speak, to this gross receipts tax without unrolling an equivalent support or strategic kind of overlay that helps deal with all of the challenges our local business economy is facing. We've talked about this at length before, but I don't see the point in continuing a tax that, by all forecasts, is going to decline in the future. And unless there was some kind of comprehensive economic plan for the city, which we have not seen, that's not something I can support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McKnight. Councilor Letwin.
I'll be brief because I spoke on this the last time at length about how I actually do support the increase to 2.5%. I think it is an incredibly marginal number when you think about what it does to a cup of coffee or something else downtown. It's a fraction of a cent. However, Councilor McKnight, point taken. I actually am in agreement with you that we need to do more and not be too overly presumptuous and reliant on what is, especially after the announcement of Nectar's closing. And I will not name, but one of my favorite restaurants has just said that they're not going to renew their lease and they're going to go to South Burlington because of crime in City Hall Park. And I'm just, I'm worried, as Councilor Singh has pointed out, that we need to look at ways to support those businesses, but one of the ways we need to do it is to get control of the activity that's going on day and night downtown. That's just one prong. It's not the only problem. Donald Trump isn't helping us very much at the border. The terrifying things going on at the airport, so forth. It's all part and parcel of the same bucket. But I do think this body needs to really double down and commit to making sure that City Hall Park is safe and accessible to everyone. Actually saw the food program working really well on Friday night while I was down talking to officers on Church Street. Church Street was packed. It looked amazing. But there was also a lot of problematic activity, and officers had to be called and pulled away to incidences going on in City Hall Park, which they did an amazing job of de-escalating as I watched from afar. So I wanted to thank the officers who did that. But we will continue to lose businesses, whether to construction or to crime and disorder and open drug use, if we do not start to see it as the crisis of the day that it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Letwin. Councilor Broderick, and then I'll let you have the last word.
Thank you. I just wanted to state that while I do believe that gross receipts are a regressive tax on the consumer, I wouldn't consider it a tax on businesses because it is offloaded onto the consumer regardless of, obviously it's a regressive tax with no care to one's means. I am supporting this for two reasons. One, because we are out of time, as my colleagues have said in regards to the budget. And secondly, to agreeing with Councilor Litwin's point, it is indeed marginal. But I would like us to see the city in the future moving away from these regressive taxes on consumers. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councilor Broderick. Councilor Newbeezer, and then we'll go to the mayor, or Councilor Grant, and then the mayor.
Thank you, Council President. I agree with Councilor Broderick. Ultimately, these sort of consumption taxes are regressive in the true sense of the word. However, what is a more regressive tax and something that particularly middle and working class tenants and middle and working class families can't get away from is the alternative to this, given our current ability to raise revenue as a city, which is raising property taxes. I'd also, again, second the point that whether it's 2%, 2.5%, or 20%, businesses don't pay this tax directly. It's a tax on a consumer. And so unless the business, and I guess I don't know of every instance, but unless the business voluntarily chooses to shoulder this tax, it actually wouldn't impact the business's margins whatsoever. Two, I'd be curious to see, and I don't know off the top of my head, but I wonder if, CEO Shad, if you would know anecdotally, I know we've talked about a projected decrease overall in the total revenue from the gross receipts tax, but when did we start to see that decline? Because my understanding was that that was an FY25 or maybe as early as 24, I think starting in FY25.
It certainly started at least in FY25. I could get that information more detailed for you.
Okay, so I would put forward that we saw a drastic 30 to 40%, I think no, I'm mixing up my numbers, but a drastic sort of potential drop-off in total revenues at the same time that the Trump administration took outrageous action in regards to our northern neighbor, and we saw tourism drop significantly. Crime has been an issue for years now, and will continue to be. I will say what we are doing for businesses, for example, is we just invested over $600,000 to mitigate traffic, so we have two-way lanes, as an example, which is almost the size of our entire housing trust fund, the mechanism we use to invest in affordable housing annually. We are, for example, finally have a alternative to how we allocated officer and public safety resources the last 5 to 6 years, which Chief Burke has instituted, which has drastically increased patrols on Church Street and downtown, which has, when I have had one-on-one conversations with business owners, they've noted that they've seen drastic improvement. I'll also say anecdotally that I've seen drastic improvement both in the parking garage over the last year and downtown as well, as someone who goes down and tries to spend money locally as much as I can. I'd also pose that part of the reason I spend less money right now downtown is because runaway inflation that's out of our control, and it's really hard to be able to afford luxury goods on Church Street when I'm raising 2 kids and trying to shoulder nearly $20,000 of childcare costs after the great work of the state subsidy program. So there are real realities. I feel like we're taking reasonable steps that we had consensus on this council to address these things downtown. There's more work to do, but lowering taxes on corporations isn't going to get us there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Newbeezer. Councilor Grant, and then we'll go to the mayor for the last word.
Thank you. So throughout the budget process, the mayor's administration brought forth strategic thinking. They brought forth a comprehensive plan to deal with the second year in a row a structural budget gap. We will be dealing with this again next year. We cannot keep shouldering on the people of Burlington on property taxes. We can't. This is a consumption tax. Businesses should not be absorbing this tax. They should be passing it on. And most likely next year when we get to looking at this, we will probably still have to keep it. I don't think we should, pretend. I think we need to be practical about what our situation is and what has been talked about ad nauseum by the mayor's office and seemingly ignored at times. And we have to be very careful about this. We have to be very careful about what we promise our businesses in terms of how we help them. And I continue to stress that we have to look at Central District as a whole, because what's good for the Central District will also help the businesses located in the Central District. This continuing wanting to legislate for just a few streets is not effective in our city, and it undermines other efforts that are being put forward. There is a real and legitimate concern about the lack of enforcement in our downtown, period. That existed. And everyone who lives in the Central District knows it. We have different things happening now, and we have other programs coming from this administration that we did not have from the previous administration. At some point, I would really like to see us work as a team, as a council, and work as a team with this mayor, instead of taking what are at times unsubstantiated pot shots. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Grant, and I'll turn to the mayor now. You get the last word.
Thank you, Acting President Barlow. I would just want to take a moment here to balance the record and bring residents who are watching and folks who are here in the audience back to June of this summer, when we worked very diligently to land a balanced budget to support Burlingtonians, folks who actually live here and are trying to afford to stay here in the city. What we offered in very good faith of bargaining back and forth with all the city councilors, myself as mayor and my team, was a good faith compromise, a compromise that agreed using the gross receipts tax to help fund support for businesses, to fund increased investments that were asked of us by certain city councilors to support specifically businesses. And it's disappointing to me now to get to a point where the tools for which we need to bring online, including updating this gross receipts ordinance to make this all happen, to fulfill the balanced budget that we all got to an agreement on, is now facing perhaps a lack of support by certain councilors. Of course, councilors can change their minds, but I think it's important to bring us back to June and really reflecting what these investments that the gross receipts were going to do, including supporting investing in solutions brought by councilors around supports for Great Street, Main Street's adaptations to our construction plan, which costs money, supporting a possible business mitigation support fund, which was, again, brought forward by councilors, which you said we would support if we can find additional resources, and following through on saying specifically we will make sure gross receipts is a piece of that revenue to support that fund. We also made sure that we were careful around the estimates about we were building this budget around according to gross receipts because we are looking at the economic trends. And at every Board of Finance monthly, we're bringing the real numbers back to the Board of Finance based on economic factors largely outside the control of city government. When we merged CEDO and Burlington the Business Workforce Development offices back together, we did not touch business development positions because we know how important it is to support our small business, locally owned businesses in the city. There are a lot of things that can help move this city forward, not only making sure it's affordable and we support local businesses, but make sure we follow through on good faith compromise that we work together. That's when local government works best. And I just offer to everyone here around this table, let us work together in finding real solutions and honoring the decisions and the good work we did together. Let us work together. Let us work together.
And with that, will the clerk call the roll?
Acting City Council President Barlow,
Yes.
Councilor Bergman,
Yes.
Councilor Broderick,
Yes.
Councilor Carpenter,
Yes.
Councilor Grant,
Yes.
Councilor Kane,
Yes.
Councilor Litwin,
Yes.
Councilor McKnight,
No.
Councilor Newbeezer,
Yes.
Councilor Schachter,
Yes.
Councilor Singh,
Yes.
Ten ayes, 1 nay, 1 absent.
With 10 ayes, 1 nay, and 1 absent, the ordinance passes. It's whatever the motion was. I think it was a second read. And so that concludes item 8.1. And so now we'll turn to 8.2. And I'm going to turn to Councilor Bergman again on this one.
Why, thank you. I think I got Carter's bad mic. But I would like to waive the reading and have the floor back after a second. I'd like to move to waive the reading and adopt the resolution, have the floor back after a second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Broderick. The floor is yours, Councilor Bergman.
Why, thank you. First, I want to thank Robin Lloyd and Jim Geyer and others for continuing to keep the issue of nuclear war and the cost of the nuclear arms race in the public realm. The war in Ukraine, the bombing of facilities in Iran, the deployment of 2 nuclear submarines by Trump over the last few days are just some of the many indications that the fate of the earth, as Jonathan Shell termed it in 1982, is still at risk of nuclear annihilation, and the future is still in our hands. 45 years ago, Robin was one of a number of residents who brought this question to the Burlington City Council and the voters as part of a nuclear freeze campaign that gave great momentum to a growing worldwide movement that ultimately led to significant arms control treaties and reductions in the number of nuclear weapons globally. Western Massachusetts, Burlington, Vermont, and then the rest of our state jump-started the movement in the United States, and Robin and Jim played a big role in that, and I just want to thank you, my friend. One of the consequences is that Bernie joined Mayors for Peace in May of 1986, and Burlington has been a member ever since. Now, Emma is the 4th mayor since Bernie, and we've had many city council iterations since then, many more than 4. And given the turnover in councils and mayors, given the danger of nuclear holocaust, given the cost of our growing arms budget and the damage to our social safety net, including funds for our city and people struggling with affordability, it is absolutely appropriate that we reaffirm our support for the mayor's participation in Mayors for Peace, and that we unite around asking her to be as involved in it to the maximum degree possible. There are interesting initiatives in that the organization supports, like cultivating peace consciousness and youth development, that would go well with our culture here in Burlington. They are likely to have collateral benefits as we work through our own questions of community peace, health, and safety, like we've been talking about tonight. I'd like to now give Jim Geyer and Jim Carrier a few moments, and we've talked about this, to come up and address us before continuing with the council deliberations. I conclude my remarks at this point, so they would just go. Thank you.
Thank you, Gene. I'm Jim Carrier, and I just want to give you a little report here. 5 days from today, Japan will add about 6,000 names to a list of people who died from the 2 atomic bombs 80 years ago this month. They wouldn't tell me the number ahead of time, but the list kept at the National Peace Memorial Halls in Hiroshima and Nagasaki totaled 198,785 last year. The new deaths will push the number above 200,000. There are about 100,000 survivors of these bombs, called hibakusha, still living. Their mean age is 85. They are dying at about 6,000 a year. I was just in Nagasaki to interview them and doctors who take care of them and study them in radiation research that's been going on since the few days after the bombings. The longest continuous health survey in history, actually, when teams of Japanese and American researchers began autopsies, preserving tissue, blood, brains, hearts, eyeballs for many years, shipping them back to the Institute for Pathology in Washington, where they helped establish radiation limits for radiation workers and patients today. What they've learned is that these hibakusha still suffer physically, mentally, socially from these bombs. Their suffering did not end with that flash burn 80 years ago. They are finding new cancers, heart and immune problems, strokes, inflammation, a resurgence of leukemia, and even a form of cataracts, this atop the usual maladies of old age. I interviewed Dr. Masao Tamanaga, 82, a bomb survivor himself, who cares for 400 of these patients in a nursing home. And I asked him, are they angry? And he said, they say I have an atomic bomb nest in my body. Because of that, it's too early to finalize the death toll for Japan. It's more than jarring to stand in Nagasaki's Peace Park surrounded by children who are taking peace studies in school and see the Nobel Peace Prize awarded last year to the Waukesha Group for their anti-nuclear activism, the 6th time since 1962 that the Nobel Prize has given to an effort to eliminate nuclear weapons, to stand there and know that back home, here in the United States, we are fueling a new nuclear arms race with a $2 trillion program for new bombs and warheads and the machines to deliver them, replacing the entire triad of missiles, bombers, and submarines. The tip of this U.S. nuclear spear is a multi-billion-dollar effort to create new plutonium pits at Los Alamos and Savannah River, and so far only one qualified 7-pound war reserve spear has been made. If and when a new warhead and a new missile are created, that pit will be tucked inside, ready to detonate a bomb of 400 kilotons, 20 times larger than the bomb that destroyed Nagasaki. I wrote about that in the current issue of Progressive, which will be coming to you shortly if you have a prescription. For those interested, by the way, in that graphic story of the people who died and got burned and carbonized, as they call it over there, a PBS documentary called Atomic People will air in Vermont tonight at 10 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Do any other councilors want to be recognized?
Jim Geyer, who has I believe it's probably a world-famous dot chart, which was a tool that was used when millions of Americans stood up to the insanity that was Ronald Reagan's theory that nuclear war was winnable. And this dot chart was instrumental in illustrating it, and Jim is gonna. There you go.
So, Gene, I want to say thanks for helping us get on the agenda tonight, and also recognize Gene's for, during the 80s, he wrote articles after articles for at least 6 years for the 80s, and those articles were very informative and a huge piece of the work. So that dot chart, that's the monstrosity. And if you look at that single dot, if you took all the firepower of World War II, all 50 million people killed, so many of the countries of the whole world involved, and if you put all the firepower that they expended, all the weapons, all the rifles, the bombs, the hand grenades, everything, put it all together, if that's possible, put it all together into one little spot. That dot in the center represents all the firepower of World War II. That's 3 megatons. Since World War II, the United States and what was the Soviet Union, now Russia, and several other countries worked on building nuclear weapons. They built a total arsenal of 18,000 megatons. You divide the 3 megatons of the World War II into the 18,000, you get 6,000 World War IIs. That's what's represented on that chart. 6,000 dots, 6,000 World War IIs. In 1977, President Carter said that the Poseidon submarine could destroy all the large and medium-sized cities in Russia. The Soviet Union had equal submarines and could have done the same thing to our country as well. Now we have Trident subs, and this is if you can see that, I'm just going to quickly show it back here. But this is a Trident sub, and you can see that it could totally carpet bomb the previous Soviet Union with nuclear weapons, about 100 kilotons each. That's about 5-6 times what was used on Hiroshima, and they would be in every one of those. every one of those weapons is about 100 kilotons. Carpet bombing that whole region. Now, if you want to look at the dot and then look at just that one square above it, just to be able to focus on one place, that has 50 World War II equivalents. Three dots, 3 World War II equivalents were on the Poseidon. So he was saying all the large and medium-sized cities of Russia could be destroyed by those 3 dots, basically, those 3 World War II equivalents, and it could also happen by the Soviets to here. Well, this Trident submarine is 8 dots, so imagine 16 World War II equivalents in a world war. Well, if you take that one square, 50 World War II equivalents, we could have a world war with nuclear weapons where the two sides would say, we're going to go at it and just do all the damage we can. Well, they would not be able to use up those World War II equivalents in that one square before that, it would all be over, long before that even happened. Which makes you think, well, what's all these other World War II, why are we supporting all these other World War II equivalents? If during Obama's term, he wanted to get rid of nuclear weapons, but he couldn't, and he did. There was an agreement that he wanted to stop nuclear energy, nuclear fuel from going to other countries so that there was no more proliferation of nuclear weapons. And out of that deal came the idea that let's have a remake of nuclear weapons to make them safer. If it's kind of an oxymoron, but let's make them safer by remaking them. That remake, like Jim said, is $2 trillion. Now, in 2022, the average house in this home in this country was about $200,000. Today they're closer to $400,000. But anyway, using those numbers of 2022.
Jim, could you wrap up because we still have council.
I've just got this one
deliberation on
point.
this. Thank you.
You could rebuild all the houses in New England, all the homes in New England for the amount of money that this $2 trillion remake is of the nuclear weapons. So tonight we're talking mostly about homelessness. And homelessness could be the amount of money that it would take to take care of the houses to take care of that. It would be minuscule compared to what we're spending on this $2 trillion remake. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you need the floor back, Councilor Bergman? No. Who else wants to be recognized on this item? Councilor Broderick, Councilor Newbeezer, Councilor Singh, Councilor Letwin. Proceed, Councilor Broderick.
Thank you. Just very quickly wanted to thank Robin Lloyd and all the other folks who brought this to us, and thank you, Councilor Bergman, for putting this resolution on the agenda. It's a very small part of the many steps that we need to take as a city, state, and country to give peace a chance and imagine a world where everyone does not need to fear their own Armageddon and global Armageddon, and hopefully spending the trillions of dollars used to kill each other on actually keeping folks alive and thriving. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Broderick. Councilor Newbeezer, go ahead.
I just want to echo my colleagues' comments and say thank you so much for all of your all's work, and not only bringing this tonight, but over the many years. It is hope-inducing at a time when there's not many things to be particularly hopeful about. I thought one of the last comments made from the presenter talking about how we could rebuild every home in New England for the cost of war is astonishing. And when you're talking about a state with arguably one of the worst healthcare crises in the country, one of the worst crises in terms of homelessness, in terms of housing, when we're dealing with literally families with young kids out on the streets, when we're dealing with hundreds of % increase over the last few years of unaccompanied youth living homeless in our state. The idea that those in power, both in our country and in every country in this, seemingly many countries across the world, want to focus on spending money on bombing each other versus just providing for some basic needs. Like, we are the wealthiest country in the world, and I have to worry about affording childcare. Meanwhile, we are going to spend $1 trillion on weapons and war in this country at the federal level. It's absurd, and we should take every opportunity as a community to highlight that absurdity, and I think that's what we can do by supporting this item tonight. So thank you all, and with that, I'll pass it.
Thank you. Councilor Newbies or Councilor Singh?
Thank you, Council President, Acting Council President Barlow. Though I agree with a lot of things that have been said here tonight, and I really wish this is, I made a commitment when I was running for office that when things that were out of the direct city's control, it's with the problems that we face, that I didn't want to see them come before the council. And it's not that I don't believe this is a very worthy cause, and I wish this wasn't the first vote where I would have to say no on the grounds of commitment that I made, that I didn't want these type of global issues that we could take to our Congress at the federal level. But I apologize that this is the one that I'm going to have to say no to, and any further the types of resolutions like this going forward, because I really think we need to be focusing on the city's problems. And that's a commitment I made when I ran, and I want to hold to that commitment because it's important that I represent the people the way I told them that I would represent them. So I do, apologize that this is the one where I make that show, and I know you work very hard on this. This is an important issue to a lot of people. But these are the type of things that, I wish we could have a discourse outside of this room and at this table, talk more focused on the problems facing our city. And thank you for your time and, the information you've given us.
Thank you, Councilor Singh. I'll go to Councilor Litwin, then to Councilor Schechter.
Thank you so much, and I really appreciated the presentation and the passion that I heard from the two presenters that Councilor Bergman brought along. And I do think that there is, while I agree with Councilor Singh quite a bit, we parallel here, certainly the threat of nuclear war and this very sociopathic president that we have is leading us down a very disturbed path, and we do need to think about it because it affects all of us. But that being said, one of the problems that I have with this is that we've repeatedly had conversations at this table about collaboratively sharing resolutions with enough time to get feedback from folks so that people have time to digest what's in those resolutions. And so not having had any time to review this in more depth, I'm left in a really a similar position to Councilor Singh, which is a promise that I made, which was that I would do my due diligence with the issues that come before me and really research those issues and think and communicate transparently. And so I'm left actually with questions that don't get answered tonight, unfortunately. And so some of the issues are, I had to read through the covenant late at night on a Saturday night to try to think about, what does this mean for the city of Burlington? What does this mean for the mayor's office? Is there a financial implication beyond just the $14, because it says we have to host and sponsor a variety of workshops and presentations, art exhibits, and not just on what the terrible incidences that happened in Japan in 1945, but on starvation and on human, I don't have the covenant language in front of me, but on a variety of human rights issues and so forth. And so I wondered, what did that mean for Burlington? And, you know, is this gonna, and then it has to stand up a committee with a president and a vice president. And there are obligations that are in the covenant that the city would have to meet and should have been meeting actually for 40, close to 40 years or something to that effect. So I really cannot support this really just because there's been no process. And so this may have been brought to Councilor Bergman, but it was not brought to other members such as myself to engage and think about what does this mean for everyone in Burlington. That being said, I reiterate the care and the admiration I have for anybody who is standing up for peace right now, when that is actually so hard to do at this moment. And so if we were to have a bit more process, I probably would have supported this, but I hadn't even had an opportunity to hear from the mayor's office, or there was no attached memo as to the mayor's office position on it at the time that I read this. I don't know if there is now. But thank you very much, and I appreciate all the efforts you have put in.
Thank you, Councilor Litwin. Councilor Schechter.
Hi, thank you, Acting President Barlow, and thank you, Councilor Bergman, and everyone who's worked on this. I actually just wanted to propose, sort of taking into account that we have been members since 1986. I really, stand for doing what we can to bring about peace in the areas where we have control. I wanted to propose two potential, just friendly, I hope received as friendly amendments to just kind of further clarify, and I think also maybe address some of the concern of like, how time consuming is this? Is the mayor and her administration feel like we can take this on right now amidst everything we have going on? And Mayor Emma, thank you for the back and forth we had earlier today, just making sure that we all feeling good about this. So I just want to propose two amendments. I don't know if I should do it. Can I just do them both at the same time and then we can decide? Okay. One additional whereas clause, just saying whereas the city of Burlington has been a member of Mayors for Peace since 1986, just clarifying that. And then a couple just additional basically words in the resolved clause, and I'm about to email this out to everybody. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Burlington City Council approve and support the city's continued membership in Mayors for Peace and request the mayor to implement the duties required of membership, not at the expense of, but alongside our work to address the many pressing needs of our city and work with the community to promote peace in Burlington. I have sent that along to everyone to see, so I wanted to potentially put that out there in a friendly manner. Thank you.
It is friendly to add that whereas as after the existing last whereas, and it is friendly. I think that is a substitute resolve clause that I heard you, as opposed to a couple of additional words at the end of the existing one. I think is what I heard. I don't know that I got the.
It's in your inbox, and I highlighted in yellow the additional words.
Yes. So the resolve, so it's friendly. The changes to the resolve clause are also friendly.
Councilor Schechter, could you also send that to Lori Olberg so she can? Okay, excellent. Yep. So do folks need a second or two to look at these? Anybody want more time on this? Is it friendly to the seconder?
If it was me, then yes. Yes, it was me. Yes, it is. It is friendly. Sorry.
Excellent. Okay. So those friendly amendments that are incorporated into the resolution. And did Lori, have you captured that? Okay. Excellent. So is there further discussion? Oh, Councilor Carpenter wanted to be recognized. So go ahead, Councilor Carpenter.
Thank you all, Councilor Bergman, Councilor Schechter, and all of us. And I am happy to support. Not happy to support the nuclear threat, but happy to affirm our continued involvement and affirmation, and I appreciate the clarification. And I just wanted to comment really about the very last phrase, which I'm not quite sure how it was written, but it says, work with the community to promote peace in Burlington. So I guess it's my small way of saying that we have all these international fears, but we have to promote peace in our own city as well among us.
Thank you, Councilor Carpenter. Seeing how Councilor Grant wants to get in, go ahead.
Thank you. A few things. First and foremost, it is now important more than ever that we pay attention to what's going on in the world, because it actually does affect us at the local level. And this has become acutely clear in the last few months when we look at the way that federal dollars that were promised to all kinds of programs that affect us at the local level to things that we might not have thought about. Like, would we have thought about Bert and Ernie being in trouble, right? We never would have thought about that. We would have thought about the Corporation of Public Broadcasting having to shut down. This affects us at the local level when it comes to educating our children, when it comes to getting access to certain programs that involve supporting children, supporting families, supporting infrastructure, supporting programs to, build more housing. It's all affecting us. And so when we have a lot of people look at what's happening in the world, especially the genocide in Gaza, we know that we're complicit because we are sending so much money out of our country and we are investing in this incredible amount, when we talk about the F-35 and how much money we've spent there. And this is all money that doesn't go to the people in our country, in our state, in our city. So we can no longer have the luxury of not paying attention to these things. Which is why I support this. Peace among ourselves. I think about that a lot. Especially having my voice continually policed. Especially having fellow counselors, say things that they would never, ever say to any other person on the council. So I think if we want to talk about peace in our city, I will say and repeat what I said earlier, we have to work together as a team as a council and a team with the mayor, because we're not doing that right now. The attacks are constant, they are prevalent, people hear it, they see it.
Point of order.
What is your point of order?
I believe that these comments are continuing to impugn the motives of the other counselors at this table and are not relevant or germane to the issue.
Councilor Grant, if you could please try not to impugn the motives of others or have them perceived that way.
Who am I impugning? Point of information. Who exactly am I impugning? I'm curious.
I think you mentioned other counselors
But who?
Earlier. I don't
Somebody feeling a certain way?
Let's keep moving
All right,
along.
I'm moving along. We have to work together as a team. That is not happening. People talk about collaboration. That is not happening. There's an attitude, collaborate or else. Let's be real. Let's be honest. Let's do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Grant. And anybody else in the queue, I would ask that the clerk call the roll on this one.
Acting City Council President Barlow?
Yes.
Councilor Bergman?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Councilor Carpenter?
Yes.
Councilor Grant?
Yes.
Councilor Kane?
Yes.
Counselor Litwin,
No.
Counselor McKnight,
No.
Counselor Newbeezer,
Yes for peace.
Counselor Schachter,
Yes.
Counselor Singh,
No.
eight ayes, 3 nays, 1 absent.
Will you say that again, please?
8 ayes, 3 nays, 1 absent.
With 8 ayes, 3 nays, 1 absent, the resolution passes. Thank you. Moving along, I will time keep for us. It's 9:57, and it would be really great if we didn't have to suspend our rules this evening, and if we could aspire to getting done by 10:30. So I'll just put that out there for everybody to consider. Next, we have item 8.3, which is an informational item from the mayor's team on a collective bargaining agreement that the city council had an executive session on earlier.
I was looking for Lynn back there. I was like, where did Lynn go? Where, Lynn? Lynn? That is a moment of levity as I filibuster for our interim HR director, Lynn Reagan, to come to the table to provide a tag team approach that we can promise you less than 25 minutes on this item to help get us back on track for timing. So as Lynn gets settled there, what we're planning to do on August 25th is to come back to council with a detailed overview of this tentative agreement with the Burlington Police Union called the BPOA. And what we were going to do tonight is just provide a very high level, because we briefed the council in executive session on the details, answer questions folks had, especially considering that 60% of this council has not been on council long enough to go through a bargaining cycle. And not everyone is familiar with labor relations and the details of a collective bargaining agreement. So just on a high level in terms of process, this will become our standard process with bringing tentative agreements to the council, including doing some more periodic updates in executive session as we go through the bargaining process with our 4 unions that represent most of the workforce for the city of Burlington. This is, so we'll periodically do those updates, and then we'll bring a tentative agreement that we've reached with the other side, brief in executive session, review some high-level just goals that the administration has had in those sessions, and then the details, of course, and then give council another cycle in the terms of the meeting cadence to ask further questions, get further clarification, and then post that for the sake of the public of knowing what the agreement between both sides transpired. I want to appreciate the BPOA and their good faith efforts in bargaining. That was something I expressed in the beginning, at the onset of bargaining back in January, that this city administration would provide good faith bargaining to our labor partners, one for which it included trying to bring about an agreement before the end of this particular contract expiration. We got really darn close to that with a tentative agreement in and around June 30th of this summer, and then worked out the details from there. I also appreciate that on August 25th, we are planning to have members of the BPOA leadership with us to show their support of this particular tentative agreement, which I think is a good, again, an expression of how far we've come in 15 months or so around really building a strong partnership of moving this department in the right direction, investing in our workforce, and always at the bottom line, making sure we're stewarding our limited resources well on behalf of the city, and really investing in things like recruitment and retention. And Lynn, do you want to just share any high-level pieces, since the details will be made more available to the public at the next council meeting?
Sure. Thank you for having me. Just to give background on the process, we started to meet as a city team back in January to prepare for negotiations. That team was made up of the HR department, the finance department, and city attorney's office, and of course joined by leadership over at the BPD. It was in February that we had meetings on our calendar with the BPOA president, Joe Coro. We coordinated to meet at least once a week, and have been meeting on a consistent basis since the beginning of February, wrapping up, as the mayor mentioned, in early July. During these, before that started, both sides established the ground rules. We had the first 4 meetings. Both sides needed to come forward with our proposals. The city had our proposals and BPOA had theirs. Theme between the both of them, I think we were both consistent with the goals of improving recruitment and retention within the CBA and see how we could do that together.
Great, and we're going to keep it brief. We promised you that. And so I will just add some deep appreciation to our really dedicated team. Karen Stackpole, who was our bargaining specialist in terms of attorneys we work with in the community, commented multiple times to me of how impressed she was on behalf of the administration who was at the table, how professional our team was in our city attorney's office, and now Department of Finance and Administration, but our specific finance team, our HR team, even the liaisons from my office. We learned alongside each other for those of us who are new to this process, and I couldn't have asked for a more capable and professional team representing this city and handling this with care. So thank you to the team, and back to you, Acting President Barlow.
Thank you, and thank you both for that information tonight. Like I mentioned earlier, we were briefed and asked questions in executive session earlier, and we'll be taking this up again at our next council meeting, so stay tuned. And I'll go ahead and, do you want to reflect on something? Be careful with questions on this one, Councilor Litwin.
I will be very careful. The first question I had was, and actually it all relates together, and thank you, Lynn. It's so nice to see you here with us late. Sorry, I hope you get a late morning start tomorrow. There's some confusion on my end, and maybe some others share this, about some of the communication that may have happened with at least one of the unions about when we would be taking a vote. And actually, your comment left me a little confused because there's been another email with a different date. Do you know when we're taking the vote? Is it August or September?
I'll take this, Acting President Barlow.
Go ahead.
So I have communicated with BPOA President Joe Curro, and we've confirmed also with President Travers that we're voting on August 25th, as we shared in the executive session.
Thank you so much. I might not have heard that.
Okay, well, thank you for that clarification. Is there anybody else? I would like to move on if we could, please. Seeing no other councilors wanting to weigh in on this, thank you again for the update and for the executive session earlier. And we're moving along now more speedily. Our next item is item 8.4, and it's on the new parking system at BTV. And I think Director Longo, are you presenting on this one?
I am, I can if the mayor wishes, Acting President Barlow, but it's not on the parking system with the garage. It's about new TNC transportation network company.
Oh, got it.
rates.
Oh, of course it is. Yes.
Go for
My
it.
apologies. Go ahead.
Of course, we talked about it at Board of Finance, so totally understand. So I'm here today to present just one aspect. Usually I talk about the airport, but the mayor and through her team asked me to look at associated rates for transportation network companies. Uber, Lyft are examples of not just within the city of Burlington, but also at the airport. On July 9th, we also presented a very similar memo, although there has been some changes associated with the requested rate increases. And I believe there's been correspondence associated with the fiscal year 2026 budget to the city council. The changes that you see tonight are associated with only looking at City of Burlington rates tonight, and the requested a request to the council to increase just City of Burlington rates for TNC networks within the city, drop-off and pick-off fees specifically. What you see before you tonight is an increase of 25 cents. Today it is 25 cents, so moving to a 50-cent rate for every pickup and drop-off within the city limits of the City of Burlington. Like I said, on July 9th, we presented those same rate changes to the Vehicle for Hire Board which it was passed by the Vehicle for Hire Board with a question associated with the legal method of adjusting these rates, which is also part of the packet for you tonight. Later, the airport will be representing a change to the Vehicle for Hire Board as well as a potential change to the City Council for your potential approval. So tonight, we're asking just for an increase to realize the expense changes that have happened since this was originally passed back in 2016. So we're looking at almost a 10-year no change for almost 10 years on the TNC rates. I do also need to mention that we've been communicating and having excellent conversations with Uber, and we'll continue those conversations both on a city and an airport perspective. And we can't thank them enough for their time. And we look forward to I look forward to any questions or conversations for tonight.
Thank you, Director Longo. Are there councilors wishing to be recognized on this item? Go ahead, Councilor Carpenter.
Excuse me, I'm supportive, it's fine. This is more editorial about maybe you can pass on your conversations, the frustration at times of getting Uber and Lyft to come to the north end of Burlington and take you to the airport. So it's a problem, and hopefully you can have more conversation.
That certainly has been a theme in making sure there's more availability throughout the city, including to the airport.
Thank you, Councilor Carpenter. Councilor Litwin?
In the famous words of Councilor Carpenter, I'm supportive. But also, I just want to name, like, out loud for our conversation that, Uber, and I'm a recovering Uber driver. So I was appreciative of that extra income when I needed it. So, and I did almost 1,000 rides on Uber and Lyft over the course of a couple of years. So I understand why drivers don't take the early morning airport runs out to the New North End, and how it can be hard to make sure there's more drivers available when everybody's a 1099 contractor. But what I will say is Uber's raised their rates on drivers and passengers alike over and over and over the course of this 10 years. A lot of that money has come out of the driver's pocket, and it has become less and less financially lucrative, to the point where that's why I stopped driving. I actually enjoyed it because I like talking to people, and here I am now. And this letter, this memo that we received, questioning our authority or about raising it from a quarter to 50 cents, I say, really? So if Uber or whoever else wants to take that position is invested in this city and invested in the future of this airport, then I strongly suggest reconsidering that position. This is a nominal increase, and Uber is a multi-billion-dollar global company. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Litwin. Are there any other councilors who want to be recognized in this item? I'm not seeing anybody. Would any of those who have expressed support for this item be willing to make a motion on it? Go ahead, Councilor Bergman.
Nobody else is jumping in, so I would move to authorize the City of Burlington staff to raise the Transportation Network Company TNC fee to 50 cents for each ride originating and ending within the city limits.
Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Singh. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion as made by Councilor Bergman indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous. And thank you, Director Longo, for staying with us late tonight.
Of course, thank you.
And last, we have an item that was moved off of our consent agenda and onto our deliberative. The FY25 vehicle purchase recommendation. It seems like this has been making a tour to all the meetings recently. I've seen it at Tukes, seen it at Board of Finance, and here you are tonight. So I'll turn it over to to you, Director Spencer.
Great, thank you. Division Director Perry, are you okay over there? Okay, great. We'll be quick. Thank you for having us. The Fleet Committee that Lee and I are representing tonight is a multi-departmental group that oversees fleet within the city except for the airport and the school district. Overall, it's 295 units across the departments, and 85 of the 295 are vehicles at end of life. 16 of those are urgent, in need of urgent replacement, are critical, and we are proposing to replace 7 of those 16 units tonight, plus additional vehicles that are in your packet. While there's $3.7 million budgeted for this in FY26, there is no sustainable long-term funding for fleet replacement. And as a result, we have a one-year solution here, but not a multi-year solution. We need to be spending around $3 million a year to maintain the fleet that provides the host of services that we all depend on, and we do not have a long-term strategy for that. That said, we know that there has been a goal for electrification. We take that very seriously. The multi-departmental fleet committee has a full process in reviewing requests each year. And with this year, we will be up to 17% of our fleet being either EV or hybrid, with 11.5% of that being EV. So we have shared goals, the staff, the mayor, the council, to have our fleet be electrified as quickly as possible. We have to balance that with our financial reality and the industry evolution. There are not heavy-duty commercial EVs that meet some of the needs that the city needs to get done. I'm really pleased with the multi-step process we have in place right now. We start with the fleet manager meeting with every department every year, developing priorities. It then goes, we meet with BED, the Burlington Electric Department, and the Capital Program Director to look at what incentives are available, what industry technology is coming new. Are there ambulances? Are there plow trucks? Are there heavy-duty diesel equipment? And we then put together a draft recommendation that goes to the fleet committee. The fleet committee across the multiple departments then reviews it, kicks the tires, kicks it up to the Transportation, Energy, and Utilities Committee. That committee reviews it. The committee has reviewed this list and approved it, recommended approval to the City Council, so that's been done, and now we are to you here tonight. We did get a question from a resident that led to this getting taken off about why we are not electrifying one of our mowers, and the answer is we calculate the cost of carbon to balance is the additional cost of an electric EV going to have a benefit and be cost effective once we calculate the savings in carbon. And in this situation, once factoring in the carbon benefits as well as the lower maintenance cost, et cetera, the mower was still far more expensive, the EV mower, than replacing it with a diesel. So Lee has the specifics on that one, but I am very comfortable with the process that the administration and council have in place to fully vet how we make these decisions. Ultimately, I'd love to electrify the entire fleet. The reality is the technology is not there yet on many of the pieces of equipment that the city needs. So we have a good process. We are moving boldly ahead. We are at 11.5% EVs. We will continue to grow that, and we're here to answer your questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there questions on this item? Go ahead, Councilor Bergman.
I don't have questions because so many of them were asked and answered in the exchange. This is, I think, really important for the public to hear and for us to understand that there is a process that we need to constantly be taking and reviewing with regard to our purchases as we relate them to the climate goals that we have. And Pike raised really serious and concrete concerns, and they were answered, but they were not, I don't think, adequately answered in the initial memo that we got. I've asked Chapin, and he has sent more of those communications to us. I do think that that type of vetting that we're doing with regard to the climate decisions that we make needs to be done more public facing particularly in the future. And I do think that the TUC probably needs to sort of like break down the points that Pike made and the answers that were given, because what he's really saying to us is our process of evaluation correct? And that's a real concern that we should all have, and we have to constantly be looking at, because it would appear that our goal of electrification by 2030 is like not going to make it. And despite what the Fuhrer says, there is a climate crisis. So we've got to do our part. Everybody needs to do that. So that's why I pulled this from the deliberative. I am ready, unless anybody else has anything to say, or after Councillor McKnight has her comments, I'd be happy to make the motions, or I would let her in the effort to keep things moving along.
Thank you, Councilor Bergman. Councilor McKnight.
Thank you, Acting President Barlow, and thank you both for all the discussions we've had on this. I hope you both know how much I appreciate all your work and really enjoy our discussions in the TUC, and I'm very excited to be a new member of that committee. I agree with Councilor Bergman. I think that this process for me has raised the need for more process, which I hate to add layers because I know how busy everyone is, but I think we just need a little bit more time to delve into some of these questions and kind of time for back and forth in our process. And I am hesitant to be, a thorn in your side at all, but I'm not going to support this fleet purchase because it is what seems to be perhaps the biggest investment we will make in our fleet in probably a 5-year period. And it just does not bring us far enough towards our electrification goals and a cleaner city fleet. And I want to make really clear that I don't see that as being your fault at all. I think my vote here is kind of symbolic, and I'm hoping maybe somebody watching will go out and invent a electric ambulance for us to shop for, because we need that. And I'm half joking, but I'm also serious, because if this country and this earth is going to solve climate change, we need people to start inventing new solutions. And I see my role as an elected official, sometimes we have to take a vote against the status quo, and for me, this is one of those times. So thank you for the back and forth, and sorry I couldn't get there this time.
Thank you, Councilor McKnight. Any other councilors want to be recognized? Seeing none, I'll ask, go ahead, Councilor Broderick.
Thank you. Just briefly, because Councilor McKnight put it just as I would. I agree with Councilor McKnight's comments. I have read all the threads, and I think that a lot of the points that were made were adequately addressed. But for me, it just comes down to the simple: we need, not even want, I think we need to be accelerating our electrification. It's again, as Councilor Knight said, I don't put the blame on DPW. It's just the reality of the situation that we're in. I don't believe that we are moving fast enough, yeah, it's just the times that we find ourselves in. Unfortunately, some of these vehicles don't exist. And as the argument for monetary cost is there, and I do hear that, but we are in times where we need to make that investment, and yeah, thank you.
If no other counselors want to be recognized, I'll turn to Council Bergman for a motion.
Thank you. And this is a situation where I'll move to not make the perfect the enemy of the good by moving to approve the proposed FY26 fleet purchasing list as detailed in Attachment A, Vehicle Replacement List, and authorize the Director of the Department of Public Works to purchase the vehicles listed therein for a total authorized expenditure in the amount not to exceed $3,771,000. And two, let's put these together, right? To approve the Director of the Department of Public Works or their designee to dispose of the FY26 replaced vehicles / equipment through any of the following means as they shall, in their reasonable judgment, determine to be in the city's best interest, and to take such further actions and execute such further instruments approved as to form by the city attorney as may be necessary or convenient to effectuate the transactions contemplated hereby. Auction the vehicle / equipment through any of various online public auctions, by trade-in where vehicle / equipment is being purchased, or if the vehicle is of no value to the vendor, fleet maintenance will have the vehicle / equipment hauled away for scrap at the current market price.
Thank you, Councilor Bergman. Is there a second to Councilor Bergman's extremely long motion?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Schachter. Any other discussion on this item? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote, and since we know we have a divided vote, I'll ask for the clerk to call the roll.
Acting City Council President Barlow?
Yes.
Councilor Bergman?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
No.
Councilor Carpenter?
Yes.
Councilor Grant?
Yes.
Councilor Kane?
Yes.
Councilor Litwin?
Yes.
Councilor McKnight?
No.
Councilor Newbeezer?
No.
That was a no. Councilor Schachter?
Yes.
Councilor Singh?
Yes.
Eight ayes, 3 nays, 1 absent.
With 8 ayes, 3 nays, 1 absent, the motion passes. And thank you again for coming in and sticking around so late this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that ends our deliberative agenda. Good job, everybody. We still have committee reports. Do any counselors have a committee report? None? Excellent. I do not have a city council. Oops. Okay, go ahead, Councilor Grant.
Thank you. I just wanted to say the next Public Safety Committee meeting will be Thursday, the 28th. We are going to have a presentation from Lacey Smith, the director of the CAPE team, and we're going to be getting a data report from her, taking a look at the way they track the work that particular team does. So I think it'll be a very interesting conversation. I also want to thank the work on the RAIB committee. We are going to be talking about at our next meeting some of the issues around equity in policing and a follow-up to a meeting that's actually occurring this week on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Grant. Councilor Bergman.
Yes, on your behalf, the TUC is meeting on the 19th of this month, right?
If you say so.
I say so. That's what my calendar says. And the Ordinance Committee is meeting on the 21st, which is Thursday, and we'll be taking up the nudity and the incentives for violations of ordinance violations. Those are the two things that are on unless we have something added to them.
Thank you, Councilor Bergman. Are there any other committee reports? Well, you'll be happy to know I do not have a city council president update, other than I won't be the acting city council president at the next meeting. And with that, that concludes our agenda, and with no further business and absent objection, I'll adjourn us at 10:26. We made it.